Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. It's June, it's hot, it's muggy, and I am ready to talk some football. It's Steve.
Connor.
Jay.
Lucas.
All right, guys. We got the depths of the dog days of summer. We got several months before, or 2 months before it really starts getting serious. What is on your mind? Got recruiting going on, some commitments coming in. We got OU champ barbecue. Hope it's not dry weekend
Game
coming up.
times sort of announced.
Some game times have been announced. some ranges. Hey, it's more than we used to get.
I think the flex, for people that don't know, is anywhere from 2:30 to
6:30.
6:30.
Correct.
Right.
So it's not
All
11.
those are great songs.
So it's not 11.
It's not 11.
Yeah.
It's not 11.
Only we have like 5 or 6 flexes.
Not that many.
I think it's like 4.
3 or 4, and then we've got
11 and
Lead
noon.
4.
yeah 11 or noon, and I understand the noon or the 11 if it's going to be a noon away game in the Eastern time zone. That totally makes sense. All in all, not too bad. And as we get better, we should be able to command a better time slot in a lot of these cases. So I understand where we're coming from. I was okay with it. It wasn't great. It wasn't just like, wow, this is so awesome.
Yeah.
But it was not as bad as it could have been. It has been in the past.
Well, they gave us the Michigan and Texas game.
Yeah, no,
Great
that
times.
and that makes sense. I mean, and they're great times. They're the right times. I thought,
Temple's 11 a.m.
yeah, and you got to figure that was going to be something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and honestly,
well,
like
that's
you
something,
said,
so that makes sense.
Yeah.
team performance and opponent performance will dictate a lot of this.
Right.
Time. They could be absolutely turning primetime games.
I did like South Carolina not being a night
well,
game.
all the flex ones.
Oh, it's
That's
11
definitely
or
my
noon.
favorite. Yeah.
Yeah,
South
no.
Carolina road game.
For sure.
Huge.
Definitely in
For
our
sure.
favor not playing at night.
Oh yeah, no doubt
Yeah,
about it.
that's huge.
Oh
With
yeah,
that
I
light
mean,
show they had
remember
down there too.
that it was part of our complaint about home games at 11 was that it was to our detriment as the home team. Well, it works the other way when we're on
Yeah.
the road for sure. That's
We got
wonderful.
Ole Miss at 11 or noon, I think. Is that right? I
I don't remember.
think so.
We pull it out tomorrow.
Y'all are in charge of that stuff.
But I'm like, no, we're actually not. We got the same as you. We just get the news from OU. We didn't
It's cool.
make any of those decisions. So that's exciting. I think the most exciting thing or the most anticipated thing will continue to be what's going to happen with the OU offense in relation to where it's been, in relation to where it needs to be, and for the fact that we've got obviously the new offensive coordinator, new starting quarterback, and a new running back for all intent and purposes as the starter, plus all the changes, offensive line, receiving core, et cetera. So the poll this week was looking at where OU was last year at a dismal 4.8 yards per play, where Washington State was at 6.6, and where we think OU will be, where they're basically running the Washington State system with the Washington State starting quarterback. The most
Against much better opponents though.
against much
Than what
better
Washington
opponent,
State
for
faced.
sure. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. So
Right.
I have that statistic too.
But better surrounding
So-
picks.
Everyone,
Right.
as far as the ranges of what was chosen, it was 20%, 20%, 20% for the other three, like less than 5, greater than 6, and but the 5 to 6 was 20%, but 6
6 to 6.
6 to 6.5 was 60%, which is something like, I guess it couldn't have been 20, maybe.
Which makes sense because you would
One was
you
like
would
11.
assume
yeah.
you would assume from the conference and the step up for Mateer and Arbuckle that it would be less than what you had at Washington State,
Sure.
but better than what we had last year because it was so putrid.
It can't be worse than last year.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on record
Yeah.
and say
That is a
it
safe bet.
cannot be worse than last year.
That is a safe bet.
I even
Even
look,
if Hawkins
even
is
if it's
starting
Hawkins,
quarterback,
yeah,
it cannot be worse than
Agreed.
last year.
100%.
Oh, totally agreed. Absolutely.
We played so handicapped last year, more than really should have even been allowed possible at the University of Oklahoma.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't
sounds
allowed.
like-
They fired the guy that was in charge of it.
I know, but it sounds, but
Mid-
that should
It was
have,
technically not allowed.
but that should have happened at about the third game. Like you should have seen, like this is like epically wrong.
That's an interesting part of the discussion is how soon should we have known?
Probably before the first game of the season. We probably should have noticed it in
Was it-
fall practice. Not
Us
that you can do anything
As fans or
No,
or the coaching
The
staff?
coaching staff.
Yeah,
The
obviously.
coaching staff's also like, well, we're going against the top 20 defense and we're instituting a new system.
And I don't think we
with a-
did shit
With a brand new
against it.
quarterback.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah, but
we,
that's probably what they thought. They thought, well, our defense is incredible, and we've got a freshman, ish quarterback.
That
and
they
a
should
new-
have seen
and a
the
new play
warning
caller.
sign.
So let's see what this looks like once the season's.
I think that's exactly the reasoning, but they should have seen the warning signs, and it's a knock against
Well-
Venables and staff that they didn't.
well, and we didn't lose everyone before fall camp started.
We did have some injuries though, and they were working
were
through
some.
injuries, but not until really at the end
2
of
weeks
camp,
season
and then
Mhm.
and then it started to accelerate into the season. So you can't completely give that as an excuse either.
I wonder, and we'll never know, but how much did Venables and the rest of the staff notice that there was just
Weakness.
fundamentally, it's not going to work. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
matter who we've got at quarterback or what receivers weren't
Right.
able to do. It's just like this isn't good enough.
You have to think he's able to see that as a great defensive coach, right?
Unless you're too caught up in, like Lucas said,
Yeah.
saying, well, our defense is just shutting them down.
Part of me would be like ignorance is bliss
Yeah.
type of mentality.
And
Yeah.
it could be like, hey, if our offense can put up 21 points a game, we're going to win 9 or 10 games.
I think there's some of that, and I think that's actually a problem that they get into that mindset, and he just wants to win it on defense.
You weren't counting on all those turnovers.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's what did you in for the majority of those games.
right.
for the
Well, and it
playoffs.
also what bailed you out earlier in the season was turnovers in our favor,
Yeah.
and so you can't count on those either way. And yeah, I think we continue to look at it. We should look at it rationally as a lot of blame to go around, a lot of criticism for sure.
Well, at least they did go get one of the most highly sought after young,
They seem
explosive, innovative.
I totally
coaches.
agree. They seem to have turned a lot of things around. Like they figured out what their holes are or their weaknesses and what they need to do. And I feel like hopefully they're facing the reality check of, all right, we can't hide behind this or be blissfully ignorant any longer.
I just think it sucks that it's so, I know it's better late than never, but at the same time, it's like, a little too late type of thing where,
It could
and it's
be.
not too late, but
Could be.
at the same time, it's like, how do we just now say, regardless of all the stuff that's changing with NIL or has transpired with NIL, that now we decide to go get our crap together and make these decisions now?
Well,
I
Like,
think
things
we-
were bad enough.
I think we got our crap together with Levy. I think Levy was a good offensive coordinator. I mean, we had our problems with him, but we can see what happens when you do make the wrong choice,
Mhm.
like complete other direction, wrong choice. That, 20 years from now, when we look back at it, if this is Venables last year and he puts out a book or anything, that hire,
He won't put out a book.
but you get what I'm saying.
He
that
might actually. I don't know. He's had a successful career.
that hire at OC last year,
Yeah,
and maybe
with
not
it,
doing a
with
big search
everything.
for it. I mean,
Yeah.
and just for the program, that could have put us.
We don't know
back
that
a
you didn't
decade.
search for it though.
This is
They
true.
might have put out an offer to 3 guys that were good, but decided to on a wait and see aspect of.
Yeah,
It sure seemed like he handpicked the guy inside the program.
But he
again,
didn't
there's
immediately
got to
name him when
be
Levy left.
there's got
There
to
was a-
be
there was a few
enough
people.
people, but there's enough middle of the road people that would leave.
Well, honestly, I think
wherever they're
Levy
at.
was middle of the road. I think Levy going in and still
agree.
out of it. And I don't mean just from that he's not a good cultural fit and all the other baggage. I just think from the resume, he's middle of the road. So there's lots of Levies out there to get. And, I don't know. I think with Latrell, you were getting another, what you expected to be at least a Levy, hoping for more and not realizing that whatever success he had before was maybe fool's gold or maybe a once in a lifetime or it passed him by or whatever.
Do you think we can read anything at all from Jackson Arnold's play this year? Like if he lights it
Yeah,
up,
if he lights it up,
Sure.
we'll know that was a terrible.
or he could
decision.
just be in his third year of college and it's just
There'll be a degree
come
of that,
together.
but I mean, no, I don't, you're not going to see, think how bad he was last year. And then if you see marked improvement, there's no doubt about it that it was the coach.
It'll be the same argument, though. I think you could find a middle ground between that and supporting cast as well. No
Oh yeah,
offensive,
supporting cast.
no offensive line,
Yeah.
no
experience,
receivers.
be another year in
Yeah.
college.
But
you
I
got-
mean, from everything we saw, like what we thought we were getting with him, regardless of everything else and the circumstances around him, was not it didn't live up to the hype.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I
mean,
know
when you look at like Spencer Rattler going to South Carolina, he improved, but he wasn't amazingly
Mm-mm.
better than he was here. Caleb did get remarkably better from his first year here, that he played a half a season, and then his first year at SC. But
But that was from a true freshman to a sophomore.
right, but that's
And
also
keeping the
from-
same coach
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
keeping
yeah,
a lot of the same
exactly.
players.
and one of the
around.
greatest offensive coaches in
right
the
in
decade
modern
plus.
history. Yeah,
So I would expect the gap, this would be my prediction, is that the improvement in Arnold will be greater than the improvement that Rattler saw when he made the move. I think it'll be markedly improved. Greater.
and you put that
improvement.
mostly on coaching.
Yes.
yeah, I would put that on.
I'd say
Players just
70
make-
coaching, 30 older.
Players make
I'm with you on
a
that.
pretty big jump. And you can call last year's freshman season, even though it was actually a sophomore, but
Sort of. yeah,
that
sort
freshman
of
to
was.
sophomore jump can be pretty big for players.
It can, but
And
I guess
Rattler went from,
it's
what, 3 years here?
two.
2
A
seasons.
starting season and then a
Who's
half
starting?
season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But-
season and a
yeah.
half, right?
I mean, that's true. It's all, you have to, that's good context.
I guess it's the same amount of time as Arnold.
It's about the same.
Yeah, but Arnold only got the start against Oregon or against
BYU,
Arizona in the bowl game.
Oh, yeah,
Came in
yeah.
against
And then
BYU.
he came in,
And
yeah,
it's BYU.
he only got one start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he just played in too many games.
and Gabriel played against TCU, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I just, you'd also have to put in your 70-30.
and
You'd have
then-
to adjust it for the start, for the surrounding cast.
Then you got to factor in Arnold didn't start 2 other games here
Mm-hmm,
his full season.
right.
So he pretty much got 1 season worth of starting when you add up the couple games that he got in the first year, and then, starting a couple games and then not starting a couple and then finishing the season.
Mhm.
That's pretty much 1 full season as a freshman.
How many games did he not start? He didn't start Auburn. He didn't start
Texas.
Texas, and he didn't start South Carolina.
Yeah.
And then he obviously didn't start Navy.
Yeah. So he played 13 games and he
Started
started
9 of them.
9 of them. And then the previous year, Arizona was the only.
And I
one.
remember I ran some like deep stats on I could go back and look at our text messages, but it was awful. Like
Oh, it's totally awful.
passing plays over 20 yards was like just
Yeah, it was
unbelievably
like
low.
7 of them for the whole season.
Yeah,
It
it was
crazy.
crazy.
Everything was.
It was
so
his
bad.
start. What's still crazy though is literally Seth Luttrell called that Arizona game, and he had like 415
Yeah.
passing yards.
But that looked like a kid that knew that he could go out and do whatever. And again, and the offense as well. Like it was Levy's offense, right?
Yeah,
Like they ran Levy's playbook,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
playbook changes. Jackson becomes the man, and it's
Falls apart.
a stark difference.
Yeah, the play calling was just awful. Like the strategy was awful and the tactical
Play
play by play
design, all of it.
choices were
Oh,
awful.
so crazy.
Like no string of
What happens
consciousness
without a
between
fullback?
them.
I hope we go.
It's all because of the fullback.
I hope we start 5-0, and I will go back and watch a couple of those games from last year and just put those next
Just-
to each other
yeah.
and be like, man, like this is 2 different.
Glad I'm not
games.
living in that world.
Yeah.
It's gonna look like 2 different.
Oh, I
I
think
bet
for
it
sure
has
it
to.
will.
No.
That's why I think I actually ran some math. I did a little bit, yeah, that's right. I did, we're gonna have a lesson about it later. I did a little bit of some linear algebra and looked to see if we adjusted for the strength of schedule, and I used strength of schedule metrics between us and Washington State. How much improvement if the Washington State team was playing the OU schedule? And it improved the 4.8 to about 6.25.
Wow.
So not all the way to 6.6, but it improved it quite a bit. And there's some room for argument in there, but it's kind of hard to stretch it and not get pretty close to, I don't know, 5.5 at the low end and 6.5 at the high end.
Where would 5.5 put us like nationally?
5.5 wouldn't be tremendously high, but it does. So we were, what did I say, 122nd? That would be like in the 70s, but at 6.25, you're scratching the top 30, 40.
Yeah, I
In
mean,
that
we have to be a
ballpark.
top 30 or 40 offense
Yeah,
to,
to compete.
to do anything.
And I think that's definitely possible.
Yes, I would say it's
I don't see how that's not possible.
necessary.
Well, yeah, necessary to succeed, but I think it's within the easy realm of possibility. Like people who don't see it are just not recognizing that almost everything's changed. You know, that you're not paying attention if you don't, if you think, oh, there's no way you're going to turn a 4.8 yard per play offense into 6 point whatever. Well,
It's funny
not
how
the same two
quickly
people.
nationally we can fall off the map.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've just been written off. We
We're
had,
not
totally
even gonna
written off.
cover the new video, the new college football video game.
I mean, we had a
It's
rough,
like a Georgia player and Kirby Smart.
we had a rough season.
Two
Marcus,
USC people.
what's his name? Notre
Marcus
Dame.
Freeman.
Marcus Freeman and a Notre Dame player. Like, and there's not one. There's a Washington State flag in the background because of like the game.
The
day
game day
tradition.
Right.
stuff, yeah.
And we can't get an OU anything.
I love it. I
out of
love
like
it.
50 different people.
I know.
flag
It's a
just
joke
on
and
the
I
cover.
love it. Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about here?
I mean, we had an injury laden season, 4 choice as OC. We overvalued,
We had the
Jackson
second,
Arnold.
second toughest schedule in the country.
yeah, and
Yeah, it varied. It actually broke down to be about the 9th toughest,
we've talked
but
about
it's still
After it's all
really
said and
tough
done.
after it's all said
a
and done.
couple plays here or there from having an 8-win season.
Yeah.
And, but with it being 6 wins
Mhm.
and
It wasn't fun to watch.
It wasn't
No,
fun
it
to
wasn't
watch.
fun to
It's
watch,
the
but
most
it's just-
unsexy football.
No, like I just mean for anybody.
it's
Like,
just interesting
even
because,
the Alabama game we won.
because
You know,
when you
we
break
loved
down,
it. It's not a fun game to watch.
and I think we'll notice this probably when some magazines and stuff start coming out, when people dive back into the talent that's actually on the football team, they're gonna be like, oh, wait a second, this is actually still like a top 10 roster in all of college football.
Right.
Like,
I think it'll
yes,
take them
they
a
had a
while to see
crappy
it.
season, but it's
No, my prediction is it won't be until something like beating Michigan. And then I think it will be a huge wake up call to the public in general and the media specifically to say, wait a second, what's happening in Norman?
Who does Michigan have week 1?
It's a doormat, Ball State or something.
I honestly think if you would have given us Texas schedule this year like they were supposed to, I would probably come on here predicting at least a 9-3 season,
Oh, I agree.
maybe a 10-2,
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
even with Michigan on the
Yeah,
schedule. Like,
yeah.
just the SEC schedule that Texas is getting.
Yeah.
That they were supposed to give to us in the flip year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see an extra 3 wins there than,
Easy.
Yeah.
Easily.
and that's
Easily.
frustrating.
I
It's
know
very
Castiglione and them would never answer that question, but you have to wonder what they're saying behind closed doors at OU about
Now we got
these
screwed
first
on
two, these first
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
season schedule. You can't come out and cry about it because no matter what you
No.
say, it'll never come off
No.
the right way.
it. Right.
The part, there's 2 elements to it that
But it's
There
absurd.
has
are
been some
just
media
absurd.
talking about it in the SEC.
saying the complexity that goes
Yeah,
into it and
like
all
the
that.
SEC media that covers like SEC Mike or whatever, and they're doing their podcast and they're literally saying, you know, Texas got it handed
New
to them
Mexico.
compared to what OU's having to deal with, and that, you know, it should have been
Mhm.
an alternate schedule this year.
But they also think that moving forward, that the SEC is gonna cut us a break somehow.
Yeah, no.
But they're not going to.
No, they're not.
It's not going to. We
They're gonna-
basically just got screwed for these 2
And it's done.
seasons, and it's done.
Because they're going to
They're gonna change it
reconfigure
to
everything.
pods, and you'll never get an easy schedule.
You're
again.
never going to get that.
So-
No, I think there's 2 elements to it that are doubly frustrating. The first is the methodology they used to get it, which was supposedly winning percentage over the last
10
decade,
years. Yeah.
was a totally flawed process and not fair. So that put it on paper to be unfair. And then to go back against what you said and change it so that instead of getting the flip and getting Texas, you flipped home and away. Even if you feel like, I really think we should have done that for the good of the conference and for the home and all that, you've got to look at it as that will be completely unfair to Oklahoma. And it was, and they did it anyway. And that's really, really
And has Stanky
frustrating.
ever had to answer for that?
I don't think he
why?
would.
I don't think he would either. But I don't even know if he's been asked the question.
I would bet it has a lot to do with those teams wanting they want to come to Norman, or they want Norman, they want OU to
That
come to
can't be
them.
that big of a deal.
Yeah, but if you're one
Well,
of
no,
those
it
teams,
might be actually that they want Texas to come to them.
yeah, if you're one of those teams and you played at Oklahoma this year, and then you would get Texas at home instead, this year,
Well, you wouldn't necessarily.
If last year, if they would have just flipped the schedules
And flip the home.
and put
away.
the home and away,
Yeah.
then
Your
know-
fans could have got both teams.
Right.
Yeah.
Ole
Well, the
Miss,
fan- but
Ole
they
Miss
could've-
hosted us last year.
But
This
they
year
would
can go
rather
Texas.
have Texas at home than Oklahoma at home.
But only
So
because,
that might have been what part of what happened. I
But
mean, you
only
got
because-
Georgia saying, no, we want Texas to come to Athens.
but not if
But they
we,
would get OU in Athens this year.
But Texas is a bigger draw.
even if
the draw, they're selling out the stadium.
Yeah,
no
but
matter
even
who's
if
there.
it-
I don't know.
even if the records are reversed,
Plus the
because we played,
TV.
like if Texas played our schedule last year and we played theirs, we're both probably 9-win teams.
Right,
So
I
it's
know.
a big draw this year for OU to come.
Right,
here.
no.
Now, it
yeah.
might not look
But it
like
wasn't.
this year because
Yeah, I
we got
know.
6 wins,
I
but
know.
it would have been because we'd have been 9 or 10 win team.
Yeah,
Yeah, so last
worked,
year,
but it worked against us both ways, and so we weren't, and they were, and they're Texas. They're a bigger draw. They're just a
last year,
bigger.
Bama's like, we went to OU, but this year we get Texas. I mean,
They
if
would be
you're-
happy.
if you're LSU,
Georgia would be unhappy.
this last year you got OU, this year you go to Texas. I think the fan base would have been happy.
I don't think it's
And
about.
all
I'm not
those
saying the
schools
fan
put-
base. I'm saying the programs and the revenue that they get and the attractiveness of it.
But this is the SEC, all those games, other than Vanderbilt, everybody's selling out every game.
It's not just
Arkansas-
the sellout. It's when they're going to be on TV. It's going to be prime time versus it's 11
Yeah, but you're
o'clock.
talking two blue bloods between OU and Texas.
I know they're blue bloods,
You're
but
not
they're not
entertaining
created.
OU
They're not
and
created
Mississippi
equally.
State.
Texas has a lot more fan base than we do. It's just a lot bigger draw. I bet the revenue share. I mean, the only time OU approaches them is when OU's at the absolute pinnacle of OU football, and that's just capturing all football fans. Texas has got a draw, and they're going to get the ratings because they're Texas, and they've just got a bigger fan base.
And what's so
Yeah, they find
detrimental?
the same dollar amount of the SEC ESPN contract is the same regardless of who's playing who.
Yeah, I just think it.
That doesn't change anything.
But
They're
it,
charging the same for commercials.
but it looks.
whether it's
But
Georgia going to
they'd
Texas
rather
and
have-
OU going to
They'd
Georgia.
rather have a rating of 10 than a rating of 6. And that matters for them. It
Mhm.
matters for that program, matters for that recruit that they're trying to get to their place. And I don't know that the teams that played Texas had more draw and more pull. Alabama obviously has as much pull as anybody. And if that's what I'm saying is true, they'd rather have Texas. They should be able to come in and say, we flip the schedule, we want Texas. And they, didn't get their way. So I don't know. I tell you,
I think it's just bad management by the entity.
it could be,
By
well,
the SEC.
it could be kind of what I'm saying, but it's as simple as who has stroke, and Texas has more stroke than Oklahoma.
Cool, for sure.
As a diehard fan, the way the schedule has been and how detrimental it can be to a college program, because
Exactly.
with NIL and the popularity of high school kids and what team is hot, what team is not, having 2 down seasons is rough on your program.
It's really rough on a program like us in particular
because
because,
especially because you're convincing people to come to your school.
Yeah.
You're not drafting them. You're not.
well, you're not Texas
doing
and
these other
Austin.
things.
So
And
we
it's just-
have more uphill battle.
Yeah, because how many years has Texas had very poor years for the University of Texas? I mean, half of them,
Right.
and it doesn't matter because the next year they got a 1, 2, 3 class in the country.
Yeah.
Because it's Texas. We can't absorb.
Mm-mm.
We can't absorb another 6.
We don't have the fan base.
It's not
we
gonna
don't
happen.
have the money.
like.
Yeah,
I'm as far to say, another 6-win season for us, and we might
become the next Nebraska.
We might have 7, 8 years of, I don't know.
Like we could become the next Nebraska, whereas I don't think Texas could become Nebraska.
No, I
they'd
don't
have
think
to
so either.
try to become
No,
Nebraska.
because a new coach just gets it all fired back up, and all the recruits.
And I do
excited
think we
again,
could fire up now. Now Texas is here, OU's here. To pick on them, Oklahoma State's down here, Kansas State's down here. Like we do have it a lot better than a lot of others, but we have a gap between us and some of these others. And to be frank, like Alabama has a gap. As big as Alabama is, they don't have the base, they don't have the economy that Texas has. So
I mean,
they're
from
more
Colt
like us.
McCoy until last year, Texas was Nebraska on the field. Like,
On
what are
the
we talking
field.
on the field.
On the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not fan
2
base.
years ago.
2 years.
But what they can do is
They
what
got
they've
Clark
done.
and they changed.
They got
So that-
Clark, and they
that's
used the
a decade.
resources of what Texas is, and it didn't
On the
take
field.
long for Texas to be back.
No, that's what I was saying. Texas had to work hard to be that bad.
Right.
We would have
Had
to
to make a
work
bunch
hard to
of-
get out of it.
Had to
Yeah.
make a bunch of bad hires.
Yeah, they had to be Texas. They had to be stupid and arrogant and
mismanaged.
give them a chance. They'll do it. But no, it's like we don't have that luxury for sure. Well, I think you're going to see a lot of improvement. I think you're going to see And I think the defense isn't gonna fall off at all. So my prediction's very bullish for Oklahoma.
Is anybody nervous about fall camp?
Sure, you gotta be.
Injuries, that's it.
Well, I
That's the
know.
only thing
Yeah.
I worry about.
That's
Just
what I mean.
injuries.
I'm
Yeah.
not worried about like a good camp. I know it's gonna
No,
be a
it's,
camp, but
it's
like,
injuries. I think the
PTSD
chemistry is in
is
great
really bad.
shape. I think everything's really good
is
there.
Devontae Gibson supposed to be back?
Yeah, he's trying. I mean, I don't know if he'll be back for,
Sounds like he's trying hard
he's
too.
trying to get in shape by Texas probably.
Well, I tell you one thing that I'm very positive on, and that is everything we're doing with Jim Nagy and that whole staff. He's adding to staff. It's a true GM model. I think it's going to become the model that everyone else tries to follow. I'm very impressed by what they're doing.
And they
And-
keep adding to it.
And I've been one to be quickly critical of the administration and choices they make, and I'm going to be very praising of everything that is going on this. I just think they got it, they got it in the right direction. It
You're building
sounds
out a
like-
true front office.
yeah, it sounds like behind the scenes, they understand
They're
their roles.
proactive instead of
They're
reactive.
proactive, they're
That's-
super
yeah.
proactive. And it's like the right people
They
are
had
giving
everything in
advice.
place for whenever this House bill thing got
Yeah.
decided.
Yeah, the settlement.
The settlement, it seems like proactive was the plan the whole way.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's another team in the country that has
Building it
our
out like this. No.
Not even, no, maybe not even close. Like, I think we are ahead of everybody significantly.
for once.
This might be, I mean, we didn't invent the wish bump. We sure as hell made it great. This might be back to something like that where we're innovative, or like Switzer recruiting black athletes and welcoming them into the fold, and just the kind of thing that you just didn't see out of other people. It's been that long since we've had something where we could say we're on the cutting edge of college football, and it's awesome to see. I think it's great.
But we've
It's
got
a healthy relationship.
at all levels too, because we've got just high school scouts and we
Uh-huh.
have just college scouts to look for portal
Transfer
player
portal,
and other
right.
things and all levels. And you got to think too, there's got to be a great spiel to tell these kids that come in. I
Absolutely,
mean, you've
yeah.
got NFL front office
Oh,
that
yeah.
knows everybody.
Yeah.
They know what we're looking at, and we like you.
And the story
So
is,
that has to
you
be-
want to get to the NFL? We've been there.
Right. I mean,
And
that
we know
has
what
to
it
be a
takes to
good
get there.
feeling for anyone visiting, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know you're playing for a different college right now. We either think you're not being utilized right, or we can make you better. We literally know what you need to look like to go here. We have been here.
And here's our network.
And Nagy can point out what he's done with the Senior Bowl over the last 5 years or however long he's been there,
Mm-hmm.
and say, look at these guys that we invited that were all big time draft picks.
Look at
They were under the radar.
and
Look
look
at
what,
the mini combine that we're doing.
and look what they're doing in the NFL now.
Right.
Like he can literally just Rolodex it up
Yeah,
and be
it's
like,
that
this guy,
story
this guy,
after
this guy,
another.
this guy. Yeah.
So how do you guys feel about for the OU camps this year? One of the major changes was they went to a combine style measurements and everything. So it sounds like they're going very NFL height, weight, arm length, etc. for positions.
100-meter dash.
Probably.
Is that part of it?
I bet there's a 40 in there one.
But
Well,
what do
the
you-
problem
what do you
with the
think?
100 meters is the game's in yards and they're not the
Yeah,
same. And so it'd be all off.
And you're not running from one end to the other. unless
But I
you-
mean,
I like the measurable.
because I don't,
I think it
I'm both
puts kids in a position where they feel like they are in a professional based setting. But
Mhm.
also with high schoolers, measurables at that age could change drastically.
Right.
From
Right.
1 year to the next. Whereas in college they can too, right? And they do. We've seen kids go from freshman year, we've seen CD Lamb go from freshman year string bean to junior year just monster stud. Like it can change. I think you need to have a strong level of evaluation in these camps as well, in terms of how they are from a talent perspective, but I like it. I think it adds a layer
I
to
would
it.
hope that they are smart enough that they're taking that into
To adjust,
account.
yeah.
And that would include telling a kid, okay, here's where you are on the measurables. Here's where we need you to be. And here's where you're, here's where you need to hit the stretch machine or something. But seriously, like, here's where we need you stronger. Here's what we need. Or it could be as much as, here's the position you're in, but here's the measurables we see. And to play that position at Oklahoma, you need to be here. And unless you think you're growing 4 inches, this is probably actually a better position for you. Why don't you start channeling it this direction and learning that position really well?
It's
So
like
it
a,
could help a kid a lot.
it's like a bookie,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
who was a phenomenal football player in high school.
Just misdirected.
But coming in with his measurables, I don't think this staff would even sniff it.
No,
Uh-uh.
I think Brent Venables would laugh hard.
And that's before Nagy and everyone got to.
What did Buki end up playing nickel for us most of the time?
Yeah.
Like,
Knucklehead?
No, I think,
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah,
think he
no,
played
yeah.
intentional foul.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So do you know anything more about that like setting? Do they get grades coming out of the camp in terms of
I don't know. I don't know if they get
performance or
grades.
anything?
I don't know that they're told
I don't know.
anything
I don't know
other
if you
than
want to give.
I'm sure the
grades.
players were
Right.
given their results,
right.
but I don't know that they're
I
graded
mean,
where they're
I mean,
sitting.
it's an ego stroke,
externally.
too.
Internally,
I bet
I'm
they
sure
think it's awesome. I bet they I bet
bet they have
everyone
leaderboards
comes
and
out with a
stuff.
really
Yeah.
well, I bet they come out with a grade report that is like, this is just for you. And it's
Here's the percentile.
real flattering, and it, not that it's false, but it's a recruiting and marketing thing. You don't want anyone walking out mad at you. And so you want them coming out excited. So I bet it's something that they love.
I guess what you have to hope is if you have a 6'1" corner with long arms and he looks like he's got potential, but you've got a 5'11" corner who's just balling out, who's gonna win that, position?
Well, that
Like,
may be
where do you go?
move the 6'1" guy somewhere else.
Well, they're both
No,
on
but
the
I mean, if
field.
that's what you
Whoever's
want,
playing
though.
better is what you do.
But I'm
talking about offering.
Yeah, I'm talking about Zolfer. You're down to two kids.
Gotcha.
Like this kid's better right now. He's a better corner. He's better developed. His technique is better. This kid's equally as athletic, but he's a little taller. He's a little longer. He's probably going to end up better
Be a
than
little
you.
bit of a.
Well,
But
you
it
have,
might be 2
you
years.
have the floor and ceiling conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is this kid close to a ceiling right now, or is there room to go up?
I have a feeling we're gonna go for
attributes.
the ceiling. I think.
Oh, yes.
The
I would hope
problem
so.
is,
Yeah.
the problem with that in this day and age,
You don't have time.
with the transfer portal not having to sit out a year and all that, you bring that kid in, the taller kid, the other kid goes to another school and balls out. The taller kid you've had for 2 years and he's behind somebody that's, he's a third stringer or something like that. And after 2 years of sitting, even though he has gotten better, he's like, I'm tired of waiting. I'm going somewhere else.
Well, that's the science and art of it in both cases. One, on the evaluation, you got to decide who you really want and what you're really looking at and where you think they're going to develop. And then two, how you manage that situation and figure out where you want to be. I mean, it could be as much as, all right, listen, we're going this direction. We're not going to offer you, or we're going to offer you, but here's the role. If you can get a starting job somewhere else, that's fine. But keep us in mind, because coming a year, if you are super successful at Michigan State or wherever you end up, we're in business.
Yeah.
Give
So
us a
there's
call.
so the perfect example of this is just a couple of miles up the road here at Norman North. Mason James.
Yeah, talk about that.
4-star wide receiver. A lot of people think he's the best player in the state. And we were heavy on him, and it was almost an OU lock. And once Nagy came in, we kind of stopped having less and less communications with them, and it started to kind of wean off.
shut
And
it
maybe
down.
OU wasn't as involved, and he committed to Washington last week. Who knows? I mean, obviously they know, but the rest of us don't know. Was it he's 5'10" and he's a really nice football player, but that's not going to cut it for us moving forward?
See how you develop.
Is it he's 5'10" and
Wants $1 million.
right, he wants too much money and we're just not going to pay a 5'10" receiver that? Was it some I don't know.
It could be an
it's hard to say.
attitude. I mean, it always could be something like any of the
Was it-
coaches could
was
say
it
he
we already have
culturally doesn't mix
enough. I've heard one thing is we already have enough of those
of
players
those guys, right?
So even though he's a
And
great
again, for the
football
money.
player, but do we want another
Right.
5'10", 5'11" wide?
Well, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I've got a lot of faith in what they're doing, that they're making a good decision there. And I don't know which of those it is or what combination. It's probably a little bit of everything. But I like that idea that they're coming in and making those evaluations and not just saying 4-star local kid, got to get him. Because
Right.
that, especially in an era where you've got to pay money and obviously it's limited funds, you're trying to figure out where you're going to spend your money. And that if it doesn't make sense, dollars and cents, it doesn't. And it's not good for the kid either. And again, he could have a better career himself. He goes off to Washington in a tremendous career, or he goes off to Washington and does pretty good. And all of a sudden he gets a transfer back to Oklahoma, or who knows, Ohio State or somewhere else.
Well, it's gotta help too with the front office as well, like to have that many people be able to help maintain relationships and you're not leaning on one or two or three guys to go coaches who need to spend time elsewhere and do things. You have a front office who is dedicated to that type of thing as well to help keep things on an even keel or make those evaluations or help make the tough decisions.
Will be the bad guy too.
Good cop, bad cop.
Good cop, bad cop,
sure.
huge. Because then Brent doesn't ever have to be the bad guy. He can always throw them under the bus.
And
And
they'll let him.
And they probably tell him
yeah,
too.
yeah, he's probably say, hey,
Yeah.
tell him it was me.
Mhm.
David
And
Stone's probably a good example.
what a better example. Yeah, what a better situation. Yeah, for sure. The David Stone situation.
What
Very,
do we
very
hire
true.
somebody for the training staff?
We did.
We
We
hired a
did.
rehab specialist from the Saints.
Yeah, we
It's
got
not a new medical staff, like,
it.
like that does the procedures and things like that. This
Is it
guy,
not a new medical staff too?
no,
Okay.
this
I thought-
guy supposedly is just there to
Get him back
which-
on the
which We
field.
had a huge problem with last year, and Brent never said it exactly, but when they would ask him about players, sometimes he didn't even know exactly what was wrong with it. It was very cloak and dagger. Like, it was weird that the head coach didn't know what was going on with this player.
Yeah.
Like, is he coming back? How hurt is he? When is he coming back? What is the injury exactly?
I
It's
sensed
shocking that the
I
head
sensed
coach
the
wouldn't know.
frustration that he was all but saying, I don't know, and I'm kind of mad I don't know,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to figure out why he's not playing
Trust
yet.
me, we want him out on the field just as much.
Exactly,
As
yeah.
Like,
So and this guy, I guess, has a great track record of getting people back on the field, and not back on the field too early, not where they're going to get hurt, but back on the field and healthy and ready to go. So
Yeah, and a lot of people
it's
looked at
exciting.
the Saints had a bunch of injuries or something. He's not the injury prevention guy.
yeah.
Right.
He's the get
Get
you
him
back
back
from
on-
He's
injury.
not the direct
not
counter
strength and
to,
conditioning.
he's not the direct counter to Jerry Smith. Like,
No. Well, he might be. It's Jerry Schmidt hurts him and he gets him back on the field. So I think that's another good hire, and it shows that they recognize a problem that needs to be addressed. So they went out and made a hire in a specific area where we saw a very big weakness.
And I think it's too, a lot of these kids have like independent medical like evals and recommendations, which I did find strange, but
Like when Anderson was going to Edmond last year.
yeah, but
3 days a
maybe,
week.
Jalen Redmond having to go to outside physical therapy
Yeah,
for an injury.
but maybe bringing in a guy from the Saints
Yeah.
has enough clout that these
Right.
kids are like, I think this guy from the Saints knows better than,
Well,
no offense to anyone in Oklahoma City or
Sure.
somewhere else, but I'll listen to this guy who just came from the NFL.
so there's a few things that come to mind for me on that. One is the idea that it's somebody that's dealt with professional athletes versus if I have an injury and getting me back on my feet is different than getting someone out on the football field. So you should have someone who's a specialist in getting an athlete who is a freak of nature already back to being in the position to play football, right? And then the other thing, I don't mind the idea of a second opinion. I think it's actually really healthy in the medical field, but you need it to be something that's not, I'm hearing one thing from this guy and one thing from this guy, and they're totally contradicting each other, and I don't know what to think. You want more like, okay, well, we could go this route, and here's the trade-offs, and we can go this route, and here's the trade-offs, and they're kind of working together to see what's best for them, including what they want to do, which should help as well, because you're going to have people with different mindsets about what they want to do, and you want them to, feel comfortable and confident in the decision they're making. So it can be a healthy relationship if you get second opinions. What it needs to not be is total conflict. And it sounds like last year it was like total conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want the best care, then you go see Dr. Michael Keene.
Dr. Michael
Everybody
King,
knows
well,
that.
I mean, he gets people back on the field. He's one of the best around. He's one of the
Yeah.
best in the business. And he's smart. He knows where to spend his sponsorship dollars.
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm excited about that. I think that's working in the right direction. I guess to take the opposite side of the elephant in the room that continues to be a just total puzzlement to me is what are we doing with Joe John Finley and what is that role going to look like? Are we going to all look like, wow, there's just things we don't know as he seems to be a big contributor to an offense that's performing well? Or is it going to be, why are we wasting time and money with this guy that clearly doesn't fit in with the rest of this now successful offense? What do you guys think it's going to be?
I'm at a point of acceptance. I mean, we talked about it last podcast to an extent. The more I think about it, the more I have to assume there's a reason for this and assume that there's a plan. I'm not, I've got my crimson glasses on and then I have another pair on top of those. Because I don't know. I don't know how he fits based on everything we've seen, what we've not seen from that position group in the last 2 years, 3 years
It's
since Brent's been here.
I'll play advocate just for fun, because I'm agree with you though. I don't know what
The
he's doing,
mystery.
but his recruits have been highly sought after recruits. They've just been injured. Now, that's not an excuse for his position not being viable on the football field, but they were talented people. I mean, Devon Mitchell was a 5-star kid who just didn't cut it. He just didn't do what he needed
I think
to
he
do.
didn't. I think he didn't make the. I don't think he made the Nagy cut. I think Nagy saw him. And said,
Which
He
is
didn't
a
make the
concern
workout.
about,
Yeah, it sounds like he was.
there's some fat we need to trim.
Yeah.
that's a concern about Joe John then. Is he recruiting guys that look good on paper and aren't good and aren't the right person?
What if this room is so bad that there's no sense in trying to get somebody?
No one's gonna make it better.
Yeah, nobody's gonna be able to make it better
And we
this
had
season.
consistency with JoJo.
Right.
Yeah, it could be.
He's a part of the program. He's an alumnus.
Yeah.
Um,
He
And
helps,
here's,
he
and
helps
here's
on
the
the recruiting
money.
trail.
We're out the
Right.
money either way.
Yeah.
If we might as
if we
well.
fire him and his salary, we have to pay it out to bring somebody else in, but there's nobody in this room, in the tight end room, that's gonna do
That's
any
worth
good this season.
And maybe there was no
Let's just
one,
kick that can down the road
That's a
and
good-
then finish it next year.
That's
and
a
there was
good
only
theory.
1 or 2 tight ends in the portal that were highly sought after by everyone, basically. And
But
we
at that-
tried.
at
We
that point,
tried.
we
for
thought
him.
we'd have Mitchell though, right? I mean, at that point, we were all sitting back
Mhm.
on that crutch saying, yeah, it'd be nice to get a tight end in the portal, but you know, what's Devon Mitchell gonna be this year? And now Devon Mitchell's not here.
But you have to
What
know.
do you got?
I mean, Nagy and them know what good coaching looks like too,
Right.
and they
For
know
sure.
if the players are getting coached up. Maybe they're getting coached up really well, and they're just not.
And maybe we just won't know until
Available.
we see.
Maybe
Maybe
they're
we
just
just
not
won't know
available.
until we see.
Yeah,
I'm
Like-
gonna lean more on Lucas's theory and hold out hope for Connor's theory that there's something none of us are knowing about and seeing that the guy's actually adding value. But if I'm gonna bet, I'll bet he's not here after next season.
He and DeMarco should be under the highest.
Yeah, but we
level
would have bet that
scrutiny.
at the end of last season. We
We
said
would've.
there was like a
We would've.
95% chance. he
We
was
would have,
gonna-
but with your theory, it
Yeah.
could be that that's.
Well, what if
it.
the tight end doesn't have any integral piece in this offense?
Could be that too. Could be that
next
role.
year. I mean,
Could
not
be
just
something
because
like
there's
that.
not good enough players in the tight end room.
Yeah, I
but
haven't
just-
looked.
I
Maybe
think
just this offense doesn't utilize the tight end enough.
his offense does utilize it, so it'll be telling to us.
Who was their tight end last year?
It'll be telling to us if
Not
we
that
don't
sharp.
if we
Like-
don't use tight
Washington
ends.
State,
Yeah.
Because we don't.
It's
I
a
wonder-
it's a personnel issue.
It's
If
like,
we don't
are you
use-
sure they threw to the tight end a lot? I know they had two really leading receivers. I looked at the
Well,
stats.
I'm throwing in fullback, H-back, tight end, whatever you want to
Well,
call
we've got
that
those guys though.
position.
We've
It's the
got
same
some of
guys.
those guys.
We do.
They're all the same
We've
guys.
got
I mean,
that
you've got-
guy
Panic,
Yeah.
baby.
who
Hey,
we have
guy.
no idea about.
But it's not that position, like when the failures of Joe John Finley to me are at the pure tight end position. And so it may not be a pure tight end that is important and integral in this offense. I looked also thinking about, that made me think of the stats that I looked at. So they had do you know who the leading rusher was for Washington State last year? Mateer. And the other two guys below that there was a gap there. He accounted for something like 38% of their rushing production.
And I don't think we see nearly as much of that.
I don't think so either. But by the same token, it may be because we've got a deeper running back
Yeah.
rotation, especially
better
with
than-
Odd.
Oh, that's not even close.
So looking at Washington State may not be always the greatest gauge as to what the offense is going to look like,
Well, I
because
don't-
it may be you're doing different things.
And a lot of it is him making plays. I don't
Right.
think there was just. I don't
No,
think
it
they're
wasn't
running the
designed.
quarterback
Yeah.
15 times a game.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah, a lot of
maybe
scrambling.
closer to the Alabama game last year with Jackson Arnold, but not just pure Jalen Hurts one look and run.
Well, and
Definitely not.
what I mentioned a minute ago, I mean, the other coach that's under the scrutiny, at least within this group, is DeMarco. And if DeMarco can't get it done with who he has in that backfield
Yeah.
next year,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
not your guy.
No,
If
I
DeMarco
think
wants to
so.
go and be a recruiting coordinator or
Yeah.
a recruiting, POC, that's fine. But if you can't get it done with who you have in that backfield this season, I will sacrifice the recruiting that he does to move him on and find someone else.
And I would think, and we had this discussion a little bit last week or last pod, but I would think Nagy and crew are going to have influence on that and those decisions as well. I
For
think
sure.
they're going to have the ear of
They
Brent
should.
and administration to say, here's who we think should be where.
If it's professional ran like we are talking about it being, front office needs to have a strong input into those type of things to
Everything.
say, we're outsiders looking in. We play no favorites. We show no mercy type of mentality. And yeah, we get that we are bound by contracts or these guys are bound by contracts, but here's what's not working.
I mean,
Where did Sawchuk land? Where did he go? Houston? Somewhere in the Big 12, right?
Was it Colorado? Did he go back to Colorado?
If only we had fun.
Where did he go?
Was it West Virginia?
No.
I'll look it up while you guys.
So to my layman's eyes, obviously, DeMarco knows what a good running back should look like. He's teaching them how to read things the right way. My deal with DeMarco has always been
Limitations.
who the hell was playing.
Florida State.
That's right.
Oh, that's right. And these down and distant, yeah, because they used the wrong picture for him.
Yeah.
For like a week.
Yeah.
It just made no sense to bring in the speed back on 3rd and 1, right?
Right.
Well, and then you'd have your power back out there on 3rd and 10. It's like, okay, who's
And then a receiver.
yeah, exactly. Let's put Faruqa in the game and cost us,
Well, there was just also no
the
consistency in
Kansas
terms
game,
of
the
like,
Oklahoma State game.
this guy had rhythm last week. This guy had strong runs last week. And here we are, and someone else is starting
Yeah.
because of what? How he
Personality.
Right,
practiced
better
this week.
Tuesday or
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So I mean,
Xavier Robinson
make it
happened,
make
right?
sense.
Yeah.
That happened to Xavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would happen time and again.
But I mean, just the most
The
recent
most
I could think
recent was
of
Xavier.
is
Yeah.
we go into what game was it LSU?
I think it was
Yeah.
LSU.
It was
Yes,
LSU,
yes,
like-
yes, yes.
After he just had a good finish against Bama.
Just ran
Yeah.
over
in
Bama.
the fourth quarter.
And you're like,
Carrying the ball.
How is he not? Everyone, that
Who-
may have
it's
been
not
one of the
true. It's
questions we
LSU.
had, and we all thought it was going to be Xavier, and then it doesn't make.
Who starts?
he
who
barely- I don't
starts
think
for
he
this
played-
this year, though?
he didn't play as much as a bowl game.
No, you're right. No, he
He
didn't.
was like the 4th running back in.
It actually worried us
No.
that he was going to
Do
leave.
you think Ott starts?
100.
Oh,
Oh,
Ott
yeah.
Ott is 100% start.
Yeah.
Who's two?
Xavier.
Xavier. Yeah.
Barnes at 3?
Yeah.
Cool.
Tatum just on riding the pine.
Well, no, Tatum's a wild card because I think he's concentrating on football only, not baseball, football. And he has the kind of talent where it could come together quickly and he can move up.
He
If
could be the guy.
Takes the grease off.
I don't think he's not number
Yeah.
1. He's not number 1, but he could steal a number 2 spot.
I can't believe. So
I can't
Do-
believe Barnes is still here.
do we? Yeah, that's what. Do we lose someone else before the start of the season?
I don't think there's a transfer
No,
portal
they're
they
not.
can play.
So
Now, I guess Barnes,
No, they can play, can't they? They can.
at this point, I don't think they can go and.
Did
fall
they
camp.
change that window because they?
There's not another
There's
portal.
not another portal window.
there's
Well,
not.
there
Like
used to
after
be.
fall camp, if they decide to go somewhere else, they're not eligible at that school this
Well,
season.
wasn't the guy
I thought it was
that
an
we got
enrollment
from
thing.
LSU who then left?
Yeah,
He was going to play for us, and then he left and went back to LSU.
yeah, because he didn't go
Start
to
a
class.
game.
It
Yeah.
wasn't
He
a
didn't go to
portal.
Or didn't go to
Yeah.
class.
He was
Oh, he was
he
like
was
grad,
still, he was
He
grayer.
was a grad.
grad transfer.
He was still in the aura of
When they
the
were
portal.
willy-nilly.
LSU to OU, spent the fall at OU,
And
went
then-
back to LSU because
Before
of the girl
classes started.
before classes started.
Well, if there's an opportunity for him to leave, he's a threat to leave. If there's not an opportunity for him to leave, it's going to be interesting.
Who would you guys want to leave out of those 3?
If one had
Barnes, right?
to? Yeah.
If one has to leave out of Robinson, Barnes, and Tatum.
Barnes
Yeah,
had his
hopefully none.
injury. Barnes
Hopefully
had his
none.
injuries. Barnes runs
I
right
mean,
into the
just
back of
at this
offensive
point-
lineman.
Mhm.
Barnes is just a third down blocker.
Yeah.
The only thing I worry about though is it's like the more options that DeMarco has, the less he knows what he's doing with.
Well, I
releases.
think he's got option 1, period. Because
Yeah.
we went out and paid on.
Yeah.
So I think they'll come down as a GM and be like, yeah.
Well, it might be the coach that comes
This is
down
who
and
we're
says,
playing.
I don't know what you think, but here's what's happening. And to me, I see a
But I don't think that's
parallel.
even a problem. I think
I would think it's probably not either. And I see a parallel, and it's still troubling. It's troubling in both cases with his inability to make the right decision, and whatever his matrix is that determines who plays when is very similar to the problem I see with Biedenbow being so reluctant and being able to be so reluctant to get into NIL for so long. And I don't care what his personal views are. The program should have recognized where the world was going and told him the marching orders and got him to do the right thing a year and a half ago. So it's another kind of problematic thing that I see as a criticism of Brent Venables, that he's letting these guys make decisions that are above their pay grade.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be making those
like if
decisions.
there's a couple of times where we don't know behind the scenes the kid's in trouble, right?
Sure.
That makes sense. But it's happened for like 3 straight
Well,
seasons.
then it becomes
in every
what's
game.
going on, and you got these guys in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you got this soul mission, and you got what I do believe is a great culture. And if you got troublemakers, what's going on?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Where's the gap?
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's just been too many times. It's obviously a DeMarco rotation. It's his
Yeah,
own personal
yeah,
rotation
I-
issue.
It could be something that's like, you know what? Here's how I like my coffee, and that's too many creams and sugars. Like, no, you're not playing this week.
But with Arbuckle coming in, I mean, I think what we've seen with DeMarco is he's had his free reign. I do think you need to empower your position coaches to an extent, but I think I am hoping that we get a coordinator in there, Brent Venables-esque, that takes some of that autonomy
Yes.
away.
Yes.
Like, hey, DeMarco, I'm gonna take your advice and your consulting on what you think this week. However, I'm making the decision.
Absolutely. I mean, think about every great, especially offensive coordinator. Probably it extends to the defense too. I think in every case, they have a very strong understanding and view of who should be playing where and
Personnel
when.
decisions, exactly.
And there's like no way Lincoln Riley is letting somebody do the kind of decision making that
No,
it
and-
appears
and-
that
and-
DeMarco Murray was doing.
This is
No, but he was doing on the defense side of the ball. He was letting Grinch put Buki
Correct,
out there
true,
left and right.
true.
But that's what I'm saying. You gotta have
I
balance.
mean,
on
when
both
Bob
sides.
was here, Bob never interfered with the offense up until he told Hypo run the fucking ball.
Yeah.
What I don't
No.
want, I don't
No,
want.
but he had capable people doing capable jobs, and that's the difference. So if you've got a guy who's making great decisions, there's no reason
Exactly.
to intervene. But if you got a guy who's not making great decisions, then you got to intervene.
I can't imagine Arbuckle, as important as this job is for him and what's on the line for his career,
Right.
leaving that up
to be like, oh, man, this is the 3rd time on 3rd down this game we've had the wrong run back in.
Oh,
Wonder
well.
what DeMarco's doing.
Wonder who I'll get next
Yeah.
time. No,
Yeah,
it's like, no, guy.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
Well,
what is ought not on the field
That's a great
on
point.
3rd and 7? Please.
It's super important for Arbuckle and Venables. So it's incumbent that they don't let someone else make a decision for them that messes this thing up.
And it'll make DeMarco look better at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because DeMarco standing on his own 2 feet is not doing the job that he's here to do. And if someone needs to take away some of that decision
Right.
making and make it easier for him to be like, look, this is what we're doing, this down, this play, put this guy out there, tell them what they're looking at, and go.
Well, like you
he
say,
might have been getting too cute
Yes.
at his position.
yes, I think so too.
Where that's where the NFL might be easy for him. We
Yeah.
have a $30 million running back and a $500,000 running back. Which one's playing today, DeMarco?
I think it was more playing favorites based on practice than DeMarco.
I think so too.
So
I
it
think so
sounds
too.
I don't think he was paying
the-
attention to the flow of the game
Very high school.
and
No.
who had the hot hand.
No,
but
I
it
think
was like,
that's why I say the
this guy
cookie
tried
analogy.
harder in practice this week, so
Exactly.
he's getting the most carries.
I think it was
so-
something like
but,
that.
I mean,
It's stupid.
that
Hardcore
just seems
hardcore
so-
meritocracy.
that seems so like that's something that would last
Counterproductive.
a couple of times.
I
Right?
agree.
And then you're like, oh, my running back.
But
sucked
not
this week.
under the
They
regime
sucked
of
last
Seth
week.
Luttrell and then Joe John Finley. You know, it's not going to happen. So I like what you said about find the guy's strengths and weaknesses. We've all got strengths and weaknesses. I think we're finding, well, you're a Cadillac of a man. But the rest of us with strengths and weaknesses, Brent Venables is good at some things and not at others, and he's kind of discovering that. You need to have people discover where DeMarco's strengths are, and he's got strengths. If it's not in coaching running backs, especially in game by game situations, then if it's recruiting, if it's something behind the scenes, then that's the better route for him. If it's something that is coaching the X's and O's in the running back room, but you constrain him and say, we're taking this away from you, then that's what you do, and you help him be stronger as a result. At the same time, not letting him make his own mistakes. That's what's key. It's like,
He has been his own worst enemy,
yeah,
easily.
Well,
Which you can say that about,
the whole coaching
you can
staff.
say about everybody. Brent
Yeah.
has been his own worst enemy in this whole thing for the last.
Bob
10
Stoops
years.
was his own worst enemy
For sure.
in his shortcomings.
Yeah, so I mean, and everyone has those blind spots.
Yeah.
And it takes 2 6-win seasons out of 3 seasons to address them.
And a front office.
unfortunately.
And a front
And a
office
full-
now
I mean,
can help you.
And a full ramp up of a front office.
That's where I again come back to being real optimistic that we've got a lot of good decision-making people.
You're optimistic about
I'm
it?
optimistic about
I
it.
would have never guessed.
That,
10-2.
and I think you are too, I think everyone else is,
10-2.
that you've got a decision-making structure that's gonna enable, it should enable the best type of decisions to be made in every case. You've got, another way of putting it, you've taken away every excuse. It kind of doesn't matter. You've got to have a really good winning season this year, or it's a clean house and things have to change. Because I don't care, injuries, whatever, context, whatever.
You don't have time.
You don't have
anymore.
time. We're not gonna allow it. And
Yeah.
it's just gotta be better.
There's no runway. We haven't talked about, I know we kind of touched on some playoff topics, but I think since we last talked, they came out with the straight line seating
Yeah,
for the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
playoff, right? So no
No,
Nothing's been decided.
automatic, it hasn't been officially voted in.
No,
not
till-
the
has to be done by
4-4,
December
2-2-2 or whatever, huh?
4-4-2, no, but they did come out with the straight line,
yeah.
Seating.
straight seating,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Of
no automatic bids.
no automatic bids. You get the bye if you're a 1 through 4 seed, regardless of if you lost your
Conference.
conference championship or not,
Or regardless of which conference
or
you're
regardless
from,
of which conference you're from.
which is, I mean,
We all saw it literally instantly when it came out last year. We're like, Oregon is absolutely screwed.
I
Like,
don't think
what-
there's,
It's just the worst seating I've ever seen.
what's funny is I don't know if there's been anything in the history of college football that has been so unanimous across, or near unanimity of everyone in college football just saying, this is wrong. This is just not right.
Where was the?
I mean, I think
Where was
even
the-
Arizona State was going, yeah, we don't deserve this.
Boise?
Yeah, Boise, yeah, come on.
it, but
Yeah, it's like, and they had to really shoehorn their way into thinking, okay, yeah, no, we played, we're in a tough conference and we deserve this too. It's like, no, this is obviously wrong.
Yeah.
This is dumb. This is the worst form of this.
I
So
like it.
that's a big step in the right direction.
for sure.
What do you guys favor in terms of this overall structure? Assuming we're going to 16, let's just, granted that we're going to 16, what do you want to see?
And we're granted 19 for the SEC conference.
Well, everything else is open.
No, 9-game schedule.
Yeah, no, I'm saying for the playoff.
Right, but I'm talking about, this is all, I think the SEC is deciding on the 8 or 9 game schedule based on.
Based
what
on
the playoffs
that.
turn out,
Well, we'll talk about
how
that
that turns
too.
out.
So, let's think about the implications of that. What would we like to see in terms of a 16-team playoff and the how many teams get in from versus at large? I would like to see, honestly, I'd like to see the whole thing be at large.
I was getting ready to say the same thing. You should take the top 16 teams.
It
I
doesn't-
don't
and it
care if
doesn't
it's
matter.
9 from the SEC or not. Or
Right,
whatever.
right.
Agreed. That's how it should be.
Now I do.
Well-
There is some credence to winning your conference.
Not unless it's a big conference.
But if you win your conference, right? I understand that it's a small sample size.
But what if everyone's 8-4 in the SEC? Like, what if everyone's just good and it's just daunting, but someone wins it? There might be a lot of teams ranked higher than the rest of your 8-4 teams. But that doesn't mean they're better.
Well,
Like last year, you
it
had the
could
9
be.
seed. You had Ole Miss, Bama, and
South Carolina.
South Carolina on 9 and 3,
and I think you're going to get left out.
and you're putting the Boise's.
I don't want to see a world where there's 4 guaranteed SEC teams and the guarantee extends to 3 that are 8-4.
Yeah, I think I
don't
was
like
leaning
that.
towards, I wonder, I mean, I guess you'd call it the BCS system, but there's got to be a better way to gauge these rankings with how skewed the strength of schedules are.
BCS is a great way to do it.
I don't
Math
know.
is- Math is a great way to
I'm
do
not
it.
that worried about the
If we
top
would-
16,
My choice, my ultimate choice would be top 16 BCS.
a formula,
Yes,
something we know.
absolutely.
I like that too.
In order, or not, no committee whatsoever, deciding the 1 through 16.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
no
No-
human,
no
no
human.
human bias. I think if you can apply the formula that everyone hates, and again, you're gonna
But
get into you're gonna get
that-
into
They hated it because 2 and 3.
yeah, but you'll
were
get
so-
but you'll get in the same arguments between 14 and 16.
That's so much better than 2 and
And you'll
right?
get, well, the other
but
thing.
those will be fringe
now,
games that don't matter anyways.
here's where I think you'll get in arguments. It'll be where,
preseason.
well, there's two things. One, you do have a human element, even in the BCS, because you have the AP poll
Yeah.
and you have a human designing the
The
computer
actual
That's
program.
okay. It's just a part of it.
I think so too. Where
If you want to have a committee be one of the ranking factors
I agree.
in the BCS
I agree.
formula,
I like that too.
or even
I like that
heavily
too.
weighted even.
Here's where the
They're
committee,
25% of the computer.
but here's where the committee argument comes in, and I'm not necessarily going to advocate for this, but I understand their point. If they say, okay, if we just go pure 1 through 16, we're not identifying, and I don't know how they're going to do, if they're going to draft or whatever, who goes where in terms of location, but there could be some issues where, okay, but as it turns out, we're going to have the first matchups for all the SEC teams are against SEC teams. And the SEC themselves could say they don't like that,
I
and they
say
want to mix it up.
that's just how it goes.
I agree, but I could see the argument saying, we want to see some mix and
Different.
match.
You want to move 8 and 9 around just because it's not.
Well, we don't
Yeah.
want, we don't want to
You
just
don't want
have
to
it
see Bama,
be.
South Carolina that game.
Ohio
Yeah.
State, Michigan rematch after they just played in their game, the last game of the season, when you could literally flip
But
flop
But every other sport is
South
like that.
Carolina.
Yeah, and
Oh no, March Madness isn't. March Madness.
I'm
is
saying the
Friday night.
Dallas Cowboys might be playing Philadelphia for the division lead, and then they play next week in the wild card round or something.
I mean, I tend to agree with
I
what
think
you're
that's
saying.
stupid. I don't think interdivision in the NFL, interdivision, the Cowboys and Eagles shouldn't be playing in the first round. But no matter what the record is, they shouldn't be playing.
Well, I mean, but,
Baseball.
But if they're
But-
3rd and 6,
but in the
they're good.
NFL, they do, because it's NFC, AFC all the way. So it's kind of natural that you do get that. And I could see the argument to say, we've got a really strong division, or that one of the conferences happens to be better. I mean, look at the NBA and West versus East, but that's just the way it is. And that's just the way it breaks down.
I could argue the other way, saying, well, you're just lining it up to
To
maybe
let,
get all SEC
into the
or all
Final
Big
Four.
Ten into the Final Four.
Here's your other problem too.
So Super League.
Here's your other problem too.
Yes.
Is out of 16 teams, say you get 6 SEC teams in, and they are 5 of them are in the top 8, and you've got 5 SEC teams hosting the first game, and you've got 1 Big Ten team, 1 Notre Dame team,
Get better.
and 1 Big 12 team, and then you've got other conferences like, this is BS that we're all traveling to SEC schools. We're not getting a chance to host a game round 1.
Get better.
I think
I'm with Jay on that, but that's going to be the argument against it, but I'm with Jay
Because that's
on
a
it.
huge financial difference.
It is, but get
for-
better.
for these other conferences not getting to host a game.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
I
no, no,
understand.
no,
But
no,
here's
no.
the Super League. Who cares at that point?
I
I
agree.
like that. Brian Kelly finally says something smart. We want to play Big Ten teams. SEC wants to play Big Ten teams, or LSU wants to play Big Ten teams.
Right.
But this go round of playoffs, that's not, Super League doesn't exist.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, like,
Now-
keep moving in the direction. Look
I
at all
can-
these SEC teams.
I can
that are
see the
hosting.
argument from the standpoint of what is the good of the sport, and we don't want to unduly let it just migrate to who happens to be really good right now. If we do a system where the SEC gets to host everything, and because they happen to be good this year, then all of a sudden the rich get richer, and we see a downfall in the sport. But it could be a natural evolution to a super league, and honestly, that it becomes a lot easier and less debatable if we don't have 134 teams in the league. If we have 64, then we kind of know a little bit more about who's where, and then the get better becomes an even stronger argument.
But you wouldn't. I even think with how much the SEC beats up on each other, especially if they go to a 9-game schedule, you're not going to see a proliferation of SEC first round hosted games. Like, yeah, you'll have 3-4 SEC teams in that bucket, but you'll have
8's a lot though.
you'll have 8 and 4s, you'll have 9 and 3s that are having to travel to other sites. I would assume.
Now, when
like-
you're doing the Super League of, let's say, the
Big Ten,
SEC,
SEC.
the Big Ten, which that's what, 40 teams?
Mm.
Like, let's say it ends up being 40 teams. Say the SEC.
Oh, like
yeah.
if we expand.
Yeah, SEC
Yeah.
takes on some of the Big 12, Big Ten takes on some of
Yep.
ACC or
20
whatever,
and
however
20.
it turns out. Are you going to have a 40-team league?
No.
Then
I go 6 and oh yeah, 40-team league. Yeah.
who writes the schedules for this 40-team league?
Computer.
Is the SEC writing their own schedule and the Big Ten's writing their own schedule? And then we've seen in the past how the SEC, when they write their own schedule for their teams, Bama and Georgia go 5 or 6 years without playing each other. Because
Yeah, and we
they're trying
don't
to
want
each
that.
other
That's
up.
not for the good of the
You need
sport.
to have a Super League administration that's deciding with
AFCN.
how these teams play each other, but you still want to keep the rivalries of the SEC, but you want it's like that Big Ten or the what is it, the SEC Big 12 challenge
yeah.
basketball
Right.
type thing.
Big East Challenge.
But
yeah.
you don't let the SEC decide what their schedule is because they can finagle it, as we've seen this year,
So-
to give one team
Well, if you got
preferential treatment.
if you've got quadrants, right, within each theme, then you have 4 crossover games.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was about to say. How many
Or 5 maybe.
how many cross conference games happen in the NFL? How many you play
right?
4 out of
4?
conference, right? Is it only 4?
You play a whole different division. Like you play the AFC
No,
East
we play
division.
No, but like
division.
how often does an AFC team play an
NFC.
NFC team?
Well, I think you play one whole other,
Pod.
like the AFC South. Like if you're in the AFC South,
Yeah.
you
You're
play
playing
all the NFC
NFC
South
South
teams or whatever.
Okay. Well,
I
and
don't exactly love that.
I don't either. I think, but you could
But then
rotate.
it
You
switches.
could rotate.
It rotates.
Yeah, but
Yeah, you
still,
could. And
yeah.
They rotate each year based on where they finished the previous year.
Right. I mean,
It's like a strength of schedule.
what I
type
think you're
situation.
hinting at,
you balance it out.
Like the
It's-
NFC East was, let's say they're the best in the NFL this year. So next year they have to play the best of the AFC
Mhm.
divisions or whatever.
well, so I think you're hitting at is kind of a automatic bid situation because it would enable the SEC to go to a 9 instead of 8 team schedule. And it would also strengthen your ability to play stronger out of conference, non-conference games, because you're not as worried about your positioning 1 through 16.
I mean, if you
Because if
play,
you're worried about 1 through 16, you don't want to play 9 teams in the SEC, and you don't want to play a Michigan, Ohio State, et cetera. You want to play some cupcakes. So
like
you
if
can
you're
pad
coming
it.
off the national championship like Ohio State is, and we were in this scenario, you can put in there somewhere your 3 crossover games with the SEC next season has to be within one of 3 of these 5 teams that we project to be top of the SEC. Like you're not going to get
Structure it. Yeah.
crossover Vanderbilt, Kentucky,
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Right.
You're coming off the national championship. You're going to play an amped up out of conference schedule in a range. You'll never know who's best, but in some sort of
Yeah.
you'll have an idea of who's good.
Well, and that's just something
But that,
and vice versa.
that worked
Vanderbilt.
until a team, and I could see the objection from an Ohio State or pick Texas or whoever's at the top of the league in each case to say, so our reward for winning the national title is we're almost definitely going to go 8-4 next year.
Well,
and
yes, that's what the
9-3.
Super Bowl champions have to do.
But I think that
Super Bowl champs get the toughest schedule.
it is not desirable by the Super Bowl team.
I don't care if it's desirable. It's to keep parity within the league.
We're
Yeah, I
also
think
talking
that's
about
ugly.
a 9-game SEC schedule when there's 20 teams in the league and not 16. So is there some math to be done there where you would play 8 SEC
I think you go
teams
8-4.
Eight
and
four.
4? I
8
think
and 4.
I think you have
Yeah.
to go 8-4.
8-4,
I
yeah.
would agree for sure.
So
Absolutely.
I still think you
I
can
lean
get
to what you're saying.
quadrants of
I agree.
strength.
I agree. I like that.
Preseason
No,
strength
I like
rankings,
that, but
and
I
you-
like
you
it.
have to-
I like that in a super league more than in the existing league.
You can't have
Because what I'm worried about with the existing situation of that is a
You get
back
through.
door for a Boise State to get into the top 16 and doesn't deserve to be there. And they're going to knock somebody out who otherwise did.
Because
They might
they're not-
knock
they're-
Ohio State out because they played a top-notch schedule
and they're not held to
and
the
they're not
standards.
having, and as much as we want to adjust it, there's no adjusting for that much of a disparity.
Well,
in
but
it.
Boy,
does
he's
that-
not in this 40-team league.
But does that not happen?
But I'm saying without the 42.
No, he's talking about
Oh.
currently.
does that
existence.
happen in NFL and stuff? Though?
Not as
You
To
have
a
a
degree
team.
it
You have
does,
a team that
but-
was that didn't quite make the playoffs last year,
but it's a
and they
super
might
league.
get in a team that did make
But
the
it's a
playoffs 3 years
super
running.
league. There's 32 NFL teams. That's a super league.
But
They don't have to worry about that much.
I think we're talking about both. So like as things stand right now, you can't do the model that you're speaking of.
Yeah.
In a super league, it
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense because you have the strength top to bottom relative amongst a good portion of the teams that are in the super league to say you create the parity that you're speaking of. But right now, to Steve's point, I would not want to get punished as a national championship winner to say, all right, OU wins the national championship. They've got to go play the current OU schedule now, possibly.
Yeah, yeah.
Plus, an Ohio State
And a
out of the Big
Michigan.
Ten, and a Michigan. or
See,
something.
personally, I don't, that just wouldn't offend me.
It would offend me because I
The
would look at
turnover
it
in
as,
college is so high though as well, where like you could be winning a national championship, you could be losing a ton of guys.
yeah,
And then you have to go play this schedule. And not only, and we spoke about it earlier, not only are you having to go and take a freaking beating the next season, you're having to deal with recruits see you take a beating.
and you're not
But they
relevant.
would know, I would say they would know the circumstance.
You would hope they would, but
Well,
they
you
should
would
know the
hope.
circumstances now.
We're talking about 17-year-old kids,
The fickleness of them.
and
Yeah.
this generation with ADHD.
Okay, well then you could,
They're
even
not
if you
gonna
won the
pay attention.
national championship, then you could still have whatever your preseason ranking was of the new teams. You could still say you lost all these players like you're talking about, and you haven't.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. They're
But
not gonna,
you're
they're not
ranked-
gonna get that in depth on it. They're just, well, I don't know.
There's too much money at stake as well, in
Right.
terms of
So
the matchup
If-
and in terms of the
if
team
I'm
spot.
thanking the leadership, if I'm the Big Ten leadership, I'm thinking strategically, and I think this is what they're doing. Every decision we make needs to think about the end game 10 years down the road of where do we get to the Super League and how do we position ourselves to keep the strength that we've got and
I mean, the
not let
Super
the
League is
door
gonna
open.
have every single game sold out.
Oh, absolutely. It's gonna be incredible.
Relative. I mean,
Okay, Kentucky,
Mississippi State, Northwestern. doesn't
Kentucky,
do that.
Rutgers, maybe
In the Super
something.
League, some of those might not be in it,
Right.
by the
Well,
way.
but you also might have, we were talking 40, it could be 48 because right now between those two conferences, is there 16 in the Big Ten?
In there.
Yes,
18?
no, there's 16. We thought it was 18 and 16.
It's
Okay,
16.
so you got
16 and
30,
16.
you got 32 between those two now.
I think you could do that.
If you're only adding 4 teams to each conference, I mean, let's say the ACC schools, you're adding Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and either Virginia Tech, North
Virginia
Carolina
Tech probably.
into the SEC. And then the Big Ten's probably gonna rob, Oklahoma State,
Iowa State.
Texas Tech,
Notre Dame,
Notre Dame, and I don't know, Kansas, let's say.
I think Iowa State.
You're still leaving out a Baylor, a TCU,
Boise
a
State.
Boise, Washington State, Oregon
SMU.
State, SMU. I mean, you
Duke.
probably have to get to at least 48.
Duke.
I
See,
think
wonder if
it's more
Duke
like
is-
Does that
six-
make the math easier?
I think it's more like 64, to be honest. And I like relegation, so we start to get really radical when we talk about this.
Yeah.
And that would include teams like Vanderbilt and Kentucky maybe aren't in this league, and Rutgers isn't in this league.
Going away.
But there's some incumbency there that you're up against no matter
All of
what.
it makes too much sense.
And
though.
you're gonna have to pay them off to get them
Well,
out.
it
So
depends
that,
if basketball's included.
Well, and that's what I was saying. You
Well, it
almost
shouldn't
have
be.
you almost have to create a completely different
it's
college
gotta be
football
totally
governing
different.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it has to be
Because
completely
you're not
separate.
We need to be
Leave
there anyway.
out Duke.
NCAA suck.
You know,
Well, did what was that thing that came down about? There was some decision around. Was that just a spoof I saw around the SEC and Big Ten talking about splitting from the NCAA?
No, they've been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah.
Like they
There was
float
I
that.
thought there was something
It
that
hasn't been
was it
going
just it was just like a
They
presented
float,
thought.
no, they float that idea to say basically, hey, we could
Force
do
their
this
hand.
on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
yeah, the other leagues.
Don't try to
have
control
go
us.
through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
the commissioners of the Big Ten and the SEC are more than likely 50 times more qualified than whoever's running the NCAA.
Well, here's my point. I think you're right. My point is 134 teams doesn't make sense. It doesn't, the
And
math
there's more
doesn't
coming
work.
up.
The economics don't work. It won't work. And it's gonna, inevitably, we've gotta get a break because there's a natural fissure between the teams that are serious about football at the level that we see in the SEC and the Big Ten, et cetera, and especially at the top end of those leagues, and the other people that want to just be playing, like the Kent States and the Buffaloes.
No, I
They
think
exist
those-
in this world to be a punching bag,
And they should have their own league.
and they should have their own league,
Because
and they
kids still
will.
need to go play
and their own playoff.
So if you got 134 now, you pair 6 of those off. Now you're at 128. You cut it in half. You got your 64 in the
D1.
Premier League,
Yeah.
and you got your 64 in the Championship League if you're familiar with soccer in England.
Football.
And you get 8 teams maybe get relegated every year, and 8 teams come up.
I'd
Or
almost
we
say
could do
12.
4 and 4.
I'd almost say 12 with that big of a group.
With like you said, the turnover.
Yeah,
And
with how much is there? I think you could say
Well, it might actually be a multi-year thing, might be not year by year, but it might be,
You let a program get their feet under them.
it actually might be two phases. One is 4 or 8 that do it every year, and then another group that can come up and you don't have to have one sensational year. You just have to be progressing in a
This'll
certain
never
Well, you
way.
want to talk about
Do-
17-year-old
do
kids
16
being
year-
fickle. Wait till a team gets dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
out of the
but
league.
you
But who's
look at
gonna get dropped?
Look at those look at the teams that are getting dropped though.
Yeah, we're talking Bowling Greens.
Yeah.
and-
It's not
I
just
mean-
record too. It's money and program. Like
Right.
Texas is never going to get relegated in this world.
But that's the thing. I don't even think you need a 60-14 thing at that rate though. Like if we know that the bottom half of the 64 is consistently gonna be
Moving in
at
and out.
odds,
Yeah.
like yeah, it creates some, upsets and some stuff like that for the top teams. Okay, fair enough. But I don't want to go watch that. Like I'm getting the same level of quality with watching some of these week 1 through 3 games across
Uh-huh.
these kind of okay, power 4 conference teams, the Northwesterns versus the Florida States. I want to get to a point where every game I tune into from week 1 to championship weekend is a game that's premier and great.
And I think that's the natural progression because it's going to get real expensive for Kent State to try and play in this league. Like it's going to get even worse than it's been. It's been bad where some of these games are just like, I don't know if this is right, like in a moral sense.
Right.
Like this is dangerous.
Right.
This is, and now it's
Yeah,
going to
until
also
Maine
get,
comes in here and almost beats us.
yeah, right. And this is going to get,
Utah State.
and this is going to
At
get
halftime.
even worse when you have the money situation where then it becomes obvious the only way that it's working is a giant payoff, which is, all right, here's $1 million to this school, right? But they're like, wait a second, that's $1 million that we had to just turn around and give to these players. We didn't get anything out of this.
Right.
Why are we doing
It's a
this?
wash.
It's a wash.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a situation where I think they're going to exit as much as we're going to want them to exit
move away from it.
eventually.
Right.
It's just where you draw the line and how you make that determination. And some of it's going to be, I'm sorry, a lot of people are going to get upset, and you have maybe you went to that school, maybe you played for that school, and you are a season ticket holder, and all of a sudden they're not playing in this league, and you want something that's not realistic because it's just not going to be there.
But that's the thing too, is like a lot of these teams, they will never ever taste what it is even remotely close to a championship in today's college football. The sooner you create a second tier and create an attainable goal for them,
Yeah.
or in some cases, a more attainable goal,
Right.
Maybe still not all the way attainable for some of these teams, but for other teams like Kansas,
What's what the FSC gets?
yeah, or
FCS.
yeah, or
They-
Oklahoma, or not Oklahoma State, or teams like that, which Oklahoma State would probably figure it out. But the sooner you give them a goal to reach and say, there's a whole level of marketing and a whole level of recruitment that you can add to the lore of your smaller school, the better off you're going to be in the long run. I'm going to go compete for the second level national champion. Like you said, FCS is a great example. Like I watched the FCS national championship. I don't care about any of the teams that are in it, but guess what? It's on. These teams are, 0 loss or 1 loss teams in that lower tier. And it's exciting to watch because it's competitive.
And we keep thinking like it's going to be just a separation of the current FBS. We're not considering the fact that the lower half or lower third of the
Could add
FBS
FBS.
goes to the FCS.
Right.
It becomes a different league there and a better, stronger
And bigger,
league and a better
yeah.
product.
Right.
And you
A lot more marketable.
find where you're going to, it's more marketable. And also it's the right fit.
Mhm.
It's what they want to be. And for those that want a true amateur product or something closer to the amateur product, that becomes an alternative.
I
for
don't
it.
know how you fit that into TV deals though.
Is that a
because-
bit on the head to them though? Is it like the NIT where, oh, congratulations, you won the NIT?
How is it not
title
right
this
now
year?
with the FCS? I mean, it's the same thing.
would
It
you?
is.
But that's the thing too.
But
is
they're
like,
not the NFL.
I'll
also.
never.
Yeah, but they're also, I mean, other than the people that went to that school, there's not a big North Dakota State watch party. I mean, you know what I mean?
But NIT's a little
And there
different.
won't be ever, and it doesn't matter.
NIT's a little different because NIT is because you could not make it to the bigger tournament, right? In this case, it's a little bit different than NIT. We're not giving you the option to make it in the bigger tournament. You are playing for one singular thing. And that is a
And you've chosen
championship.
what to be.
Yeah, and you're playing for a championship in a secondary league.
And that's why you have
And that's
relegation.
all you can get.
Yeah, but
And-
with that, the top 8 teams, like if you do a 16-team playoff in that second division, then if you win that first round game, you're guaranteed you're one of the 8 teams left. You're going up next year.
And
That's a huge goal
Well,
for somebody
we'll
that's in
never,
that.
So-
it'll
so
never,
But if it is a
So you're
Kent
saying
State,
relegation?
it'll never
promotion.
happen.
Yeah, if Kent State is
Sure.
in the 14th of that league, they win their upset or whatever, and they're in the
Right.
second round of that. Well, then Kent State is in the top 64
Yes.
in the big leagues.
Yeah.
as incredible as it sounds, it'll never happen.
And
I agree.
I love that
It would be
idea.
awesome.
Like multiple routes to get to the top tier of college football. You can buy your way in because maybe you've got a donor like Boone Pickens. And if that guy came along today and said, you know what, I want this team to be playing at this level of football, not only could it be what he tried to do, which was advance them to a higher level within FBS, but he also would have wanted, had it been a relegation to promotion model, he would have wanted them to get promoted into it. Well, that's one way to get there. The other way is win the championship or do so well record wise. The other could be show a track record and here's what we want to do, improve your resume. And somebody else, if you structure the model right, it could be someone else who decides, you know what, they're going to buy me out of this position and I'm Kansas and I'm not Syria or Kentucky or whoever you want to say, Vanderbilt, and I don't actually want to do this. I mean, Vanderbilt, if the money's right, Vanderbilt will be happy to relegate themselves down to the lower level and compete down there. They don't want out of the SEC because it's a lot of money.
The only incentive for these lower level teams to get promoted would be TV.
Yeah, they
revenue.
get their piece of the pie.
That would be it. There
Well,
would not,
Yeah, but
there would not be,
Or
there would,
unrealistic goals.
yeah, which, I mean, fine, exactly. Like,
We got a lot of teams with
go,
unrealistic
go,
goals.
go
I mean,
for it.
Tell that to Wrexham. I mean, look what Wrexham's done
Yeah,
in a 3-year period. They've moved up 3 leagues.
okay, fair enough. And
I
like
mean,
you,
that's
you
good.
could,
You
you could
could-
apply the same model of
but
a
North
big,
Dakota State
a
could
big
be the
donor
Wrexham.
comes in.
It could
They
be.
may not be because they're FCS.
Uh-huh.
They may be not. They're not in the top 64. They're not in that next 64, but they're in the one below that. And then they build their program up, and they win that league, and they move up to the.
Well, Appalachian State.
they
But
move
it
up
may-
to the second one.
North Dakota State, or maybe a poor example though, because that team is a team that I guarantee you has had every opportunity to take the next step and actually join the FBS. You have other teams like, I don't know what the
Well-
qualifications are,
Well,
but there's a reason that team has not joined the FBS.
right, and the teams that have, so that's a great reason or
Stay
reason
down
to
like
believe
Vanderbilt.
that it's
Get the
sustainable
money, yeah.
because they've chosen to do that.
Yeah.
And they're doing it now in this world. And I'm saying in a future world, it's going to be even more lucrative and desirable for teams to do that because they'll say, hey, I'm real happy with where this is. This
I'm
fits our
winning,
model.
yeah.
This works for our
Got
university.
championships.
It's what we
I
want.
mean, I want to say 10 years ago there was 114 or 120 this level college football. and now it's
10 years ago, it
134.
was like 128-ish.
I mean, it moves
It's
up.
been growing every
Villanova's
year.
got a football team now.
It's
They quit playing for a long
crazy.
time.
It's-
mean,
And
From a fan's perspective, the consolidation of talent into the Premier League, just the product on the field would be.
Well-
The top 500 players every year from high school.
You know who
are
wouldn't like
going
it?
To those,
you know who wouldn't like it? The NFL.
they wouldn't.
It would cut into NFL audiences. It really would. It'd be a competitive.
As long as they're not played at the same time.
Right,
But I think the
still it
games
would.
themselves, to me, are
Oh,
already, they're
absolutely.
not even, the entertainment level's not even close.
Think about what's our first game this year?
Illinois State.
Illinois State. Illinois State versus Michigan. How's that gonna look, you know? How much more excited are we gonna be for Michigan? How much more audience is that gonna be? I mean, Illinois State is just, oh yeah, did OU play? Oh yeah, what was it? You know, the national audience is gonna know about the OU
That's a
Michigan
formality.
game. And you're gonna get game after game after game that looks like that. That's gonna be phenomenal
Well,
for the
and
sport.
the players themselves.
Oh,
The teams will
goodness.
be better and deeper. And
Absolutely.
the way that the college game is played with the slightly different rules and the pageantry and the way the fan bases are, it's gonna be an incredible product.
I think about the
And-
band. The band's gonna love it. It's gonna be great for the band. It's all about the
To
band.
me, the NFL is boring.
I would agree that there's some boringness to the NFL. I agree. It is. Now you say it's boring. Why do you think it's boring though? Is that a knock against
It's
what you're saying?
just,
that's the way college is going though.
But I
They
don't,
become more NFL like every season.
but I don't feel like the game feels that way.
Right.
We're not bored on Saturdays, ever. There's always
I
something.
mean, maybe Dallas Cowboy fans aren't bored either, but just the vibe
But
and
even
the
outside of just
stands and
of our game, like even outside of our game, I can find something to get excited about. I can get excited about Notre Dame versus maybe contradict some of my earlier statements.
USC or something.
Notre Dame versus
Right, I
Northern
think
Illinois, where
NFL
Northern
fans-
Illinois is, it's the fourth quarter. Northern
right.
Illinois.
I think
is
Sure.
NFL fans are very
So is those
concentrated
examples,
solely on their team and what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Cowboys fans just watch random Tampa Bay.
And maybe it is
Well,
Based on ratings, the NFL slaughters on all.
but maybe it is a concern though with how we want to
Yes.
do like actual.
Because at the end of the year,
Rankings.
they show the top 10 most watched
Oh,
TV shows, and 9 of them are NFL.
no,
games.
just in terms of the leagues, like the NFL is in an entirely different universe than all of other professional sports.
Yeah.
Much less, but I think college football
Not to
starts
mention the
to
betting.
elevate itself to there.
A lot more betting.
I think what
Fantasy
you and I
is great.
find about
Fantasy.
the NFL to be boring
Fantasy
is that-
100% did it. It's the only reason Cowboys fan watch any other football game is.
Well, I don't know about that, but to
Well,
a
you got, like,
degree,
red
I know
zone,
what you're
stuff like
saying.
that.
I think the reason we're not NFL fans, but we're college football fans. And what you're saying basically is, I want the college football experience to be more like the NFL experience, and that's going to enhance my viewership and interest and everything because everything's going to be a tight matchup. I mean, think how many times we're out here after a game, watching a game, hoping for either an upset
Or hate watching.
or to hate watch or to
Yeah.
have something interesting. And every once in a while we get one that we know is going to be good. And like if we're going to hate watch USC and USC is playing Arizona and it's like, well, we're hoping for the upset. But if USC is playing Michigan, obviously, or if they're playing Auburn, then all of a sudden we know that's a good matchup and there's a reason to be excited for it.
There's also a lot more implications with it. as
Because
well.
there's more implication. Well, there's more chance that the team we're hoping loses.
Well, and that plus you can go and I know NFL has a version of this, but like I'm a Patriots fan. I know if the Patriots lose in week 4, which right now it probably is the end of the season, but if we lose in week 4, it's not going to be the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
You go and you get beat by, a conference opponent, or you already have one loss and you're about to get beat again. Huge implications across the entire landscape of
Well, think how many
college football.
times we've sat there dismayed because the season's over in week 4.
Yeah.
Because or against Texas
And
back in the day.
like
You're
there's
you're
no
hoping for
there's
help.
no salvaging.
Well, like you're gonna
Yeah,
have
you
to have
spend
this has
6
to happen,
weeks-
this has to
yes.
happen, this has to happen
Right.
for you to have a chance.
Right.
And so I think that adds to the sport. There's some cost benefits, some things are lost, but in net you gain so much more out of it. And you still can have some upsets. I mean, with 64 teams, there's a pretty big difference between number 1 and number 64. And that can be a pretty big upset if it happens, but it's a more realistic upset.
I think it'd be shrunk.
Yeah, because when one's playing 95,
It's not going to
it's
happen.
not like one playing 55.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd rather have it 1 through 40. I
Yeah,
think
I don't know what number's right, but I think.
The
I
only
think
way
36
40
I
happens
think
is
36
literally
is fine.
if they kick out, like you said, the
Or
Western,
buyout,
the
yeah.
Vanderbilts, the Indiana, the Illinois, the
Rutgers.
Northwesterns.
Yeah.
And unless they're kicking those teams out, 40 is not enough teams because you're leaving too many.
but if you separate yourself,
consequential
if you
teams out
separate
there.
yourself from the NCAA, you can determine those terms. I would
Well,
assume.
contractually, as a conference,
You're bound.
You're not bound to the NCAA. You're bound to the conference.
conference.
But then it becomes just a payout, and
Right.
it's just basically
Exactly.
here's where
what
we
we've
want to
already done.
be, and here's the number.
Here's the new thing.
Do you want to
Here's-
be in
here's
or
one
out?
Issue with that though, because we've seen it. How many years did we laugh about Baylor not deserving to be in the Big 12?
That's relegation.
And then at some point, they get a Robert Griffin, and now Baylor's.
Well, they
also
didn't just get a
deserving.
Robert Griffin; they got money,
Right.
and the money came in, and that's why I'm saying you can buy your way into the league.
Texas Tech.
Some of it's by buying success, and some of it's by saying, "Hey, we want to be substantial enough to be in this league." And that includes we're going to build a stadium that's going to be substantial enough. We're going to build a program that's going to be
Well,
substantial.
they gotta
enough.
Which is exactly like Premier League.
But-
You are
but
required to
Connor-
have stadium requirements and
Right.
other
If
things
we
within
get
the Premier
Connors
League.
40 and there's no relegation or promotion,
No, you can't have that.
then when a school like a Texas Tech does get some big money guys like
Yeah.
now, they have no chance of.
No,
getting
I don't
in.
think
because
you're ever
they're
gonna
not
get
one of the
that.
40.
You're never going to get that. I just don't think you're going to. And I don't think anybody wants that. I think you want relegation promotion, right?
I would love to have relegation promotion. I think getting to a static number of defined teams within a league itself is a lot more likely
Well,
outcome. A lot more likely outcome.
It may happen that way, because it's going to be steps to get there. And the first step might be, or the third step, we're in the first step. The third or fourth step might be relegation and promotion. And then you sort it out. And eventually you get to the point where, wow, there's nobody to promote because other than a champion who got in and they said, you know what, we're going to decline.
It naturally
And it naturally happens and they want to be where they want to
I would
be.
hope so. I would hope, like, again, there,
But not if the money's that far off, which is why a team like Wrexham has moved up, because when they go from, League One to Championship, it's 30 million more dollars. And you would go from Championship to Premier League, it's like 80 million.
And the money will always be there because of the TV and everything else.
and you can fund a lot of stuff.
So
with
it may
that.
always be there, but it may be there just with a few teams. And so you start with a 12 in, 12 out, and eventually it's just a few in, few out. I could see that.
I think the
10, 15,
concentration
20
of
years
talent in the
later.
next 48 teams would be honestly,
Where all
every
those other
week
schools would
is
never get a chance to
competitive.
come up.
But I just think,
I think you can find top to bottom 48 teams pretty incredible.
yes,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you have, I think playing
would-
the 48th team,
Yes.
it's back to NFL.
It would
You
take-
can't take the 1 and 10 team lightly this week. They
It
can
would
beat.
take a billionaire coming in and saying, I graduated from Texas Tech and I want us to be in the next league. And here's how we're going to get there. It would take something like that. And a healthy league would have that opportunity. I mean, one of the things that's unhealthy about the current professional leagues is how locked down it is and how many teams don't exist that probably should exist. And I mean, to pick on one, Oklahoma City shouldn't exist for an NBA franchise versus several other markets that deserve and could support a team, but the league
Better than
won't
us.
do it. Now, they're going to get a team in Las Vegas pretty soon. They're going to have an expansion probably and do it because they're seeing the writing on the wall. That's a downfall of the league that's so locked in and won't allow expansion. So I think to be healthy, you want to have some relegation promotion opportunities to say, because you don't have another alternative in the professional sports realm to step down to a lower level of minor leagues where you do in college football.
And with the exception of the portal, if you kicked out teams 40 through 48 or 41 through 48, whatever it is, I think there's a really good chance those guys are right back up there. Maybe one of them doesn't.
Oh,
Maybe-
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's all
There's
the way
fighting
down.
to get it.
Premier League.
Yeah.
Depends on who
Yeah,
it is.
three
Like I
come
said,
up and
unless they
down.
all leave,
Depends on who
unless
it
the
is.
portal just decimates them because we went down a league.
Not a
or something.
Vanderbilt. They're not going to do it.
But
But
I even think Vanderbilt
But like
would
in
be
Nebraska?
significantly better if you're in that group of 48. There's only so many.
oh, yeah.
There's a bunch of elite high school players,
Right.
and they're still spread wide. There's
Right.
still great players
Right.
on crappy small teams, but they're all going to be here.
So you're basically saying don't get caught up in the uniform and the name because a team who was good 20, 30 years ago doesn't necessarily deserve a shot in this league, or they don't want to be positioned to it. If another team is going to do what it takes and they get good, they're going to be good. Don't be surprised if it's a Baylor or whoever. They're in the league and they're serious about football and they're going to do everything it takes to play and perform in this league. Whereas someone else who might have been, yeah, they were great years ago and they've got a lot of tradition, but just quite frankly, they don't have what it takes to compete and they aren't serious about competing anymore, which is sort of where some teams have teetered on the edge of being. Now, Nebraska never got there. I think they always wanted to be good, obviously, and they've got the fan base that wants to be good, but it doesn't have to be that way if it stays that way for long enough. And you could look up and a Nebraska-like program is no longer in that league, and a Baylor or a Texas Tech or somebody else is, and all of a sudden they're competing because they got serious about it and they want to do it. And it's that's the kind of turnover you want to see that we haven't seen. It's remarkably a static league. You go back and look at who's the top 10 in the 1950s. 6 of those teams are the top 10 here in the 2020s.
Yeah.
And there's some degree of unhealthiness about that, and that's natural, some of it, but some of it you just got to expect. Some people are going to fall off, and some people are going to get good and stay good and want to be good, for sure. I think we solved college football.
We did.
We
Yep.
figured it
Promotion,
all.
relegation.
I think we're having the conversations that need to be had for sure.
Hopefully so. And I think the more
But it all makes too much
realistic
sense,
ones.
and it'll never happen. Like that.
Unfortunately, as well, OU needs to do everything they can to make sure that they stay relevant and stay at that level. And unlike a Texas, we are a strong program with a strong fan base, but we're in a small market, and we run risk if we don't maintain excellence that we fall off and can't regain it. So we've got to, like, kind of like we've talked about, and I think what we're doing with Nagy and a lot of things, we've got to play a different game than other people are playing to some degree.
Yep.
I'm going to give a impromptu
Do it.
bold prediction.
Do it.
10-2.
6 wins or better, Venables still around.
6
Ooh.
wins or better.
Yep.
Okay, good. I was gonna broach that topic, but I was interested in, all right, so
I think we said what, 8 at the end of the season? Collectively?
I don't,
tell me your thinking.
I think they've built a roster and a culture, and it's taken some time. And I feel like, with the exception of just super poor coaching, super terrible decisions,
Obvious bad stuff.
obvious bad stuff, I think they give another year with Venables and the culture and the recruiting classes they've had and Nagy being there before they go somewhere. I don't know where we would go next year. Like, I don't know. I think the roster,
We don't even know who we're gonna play next
but
year.
I mean, I think the roster could easily be completely different if we fire a coach.
Well,
I mean, completely.
and
Because
But it
there's,
all depends on who you bring in.
I don't think so.
but
I don't think so.
but
I think
In
what they
support of what you're
built
saying.
and the people they've brought in, they all want to win more than we're winning, of course. But everything you want to talk about, just the programs and the weight classes and what's the thing they do? Soul mission, that kind of stuff. We will have an even more elite defense, I think, the following year.
Right,
I
right.
think we've been building
right.
we grew this defense into something, but I think the best is still young. You're going to talk about Davis Stone as a junior, Jaden Jackson as a junior. I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking about big time players.
Yeah.
You get rid of the coaches, they're gone.
Well, I would
They're
say
gone. They're gone.
two things to support.
I don't care who you
what you're talking about. One would be the reality of one of the most difficult schedules in the country that everyone recognizes is extremely difficult. That has to be worth something. And so, whatever your record of what it needs to be Oklahoma as the bare minimum has to be a lower figure in a realm where your schedule is as tough as our schedule is.
The over under, did it move to 7?
No, well, it did on Circa, but it's back at 6 and 5 at everywhere else. If you want to get action on it, it's
6 and a
6 and
half?
5.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, 7 wins.
Ugh.
It's not acceptable. It's disgusting to us. It probably, how those losses occurred matters,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
you're right where
You're supposed
you
to be.
should be with that kind of schedule.
But I'll say something counter to that in a second. But my second point in support of you is look at what happened with Porter Moser. And whatever decision making went into that, if applied here, would give Brent another chance as long as things aren't just obviously awful
Yes,
and things are progressing in the right direction. And don't discount the fact that these are the people that will be making this decision have made all the other decisions up to this point. And human nature is not to go back and second guess yourself. So it's going to take a lot of pressure for you to come in and say, you're right, I made a lot of mistakes in the past, and now we're going to rectify them. I do think that a lot of fans will be quite upset about it, and that would be the counter pressure to it. Now, the 6.5 is not saying 6.5 is good enough. It's saying 6.5 is what they think they'll do. So that could be the market saying this staff is only good enough to do 6.5, and a replacement staff that OU deserves and can attain 7.5, 8.5 is the real number. And so from that standpoint, they could say, hey, 6.5 is what we expected you to do because we expected you to suck because we don't think you're really good. And so therefore, if you only do 6 or 7, that's just what you're supposed to do because we don't think you're so good.
I feel like over-unders are personnel based.
They hit pretty accurately though.
No, but I'm just saying,
Schedule based.
okay, but personnel versus your schedule, I don't know that they're like, oh, this coach is good for 2 losses he shouldn't every year. We're going to move it to 6.5. I don't know if they do that.
I think they're looking at the whole picture, but I think they're Like, I love 6.5 as a better. I'm taking the over all day.
But I'm saying if Marcus Freeman
Uh-huh.
and Venables switch jobs
Swap.
right now,
Would it be
did it
different?
just drastically change
Well,
our
I don't-
win-loss totals?
I don't think so.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I know what you're saying, but I think there's some bias going into it that is against OU that's undue. So I don't know as a fan if I'm real happy at 6 wins and he keeps his job. Like, to me,
I'm not.
I look at 7
happy,
and I
but I
look at 8. No, I don't mean just that. I
don't
mean,
know that it's the
like,
right move. I just don't know
that's
it's
what
the
I'm
right
saying.
move.
I don't think it's the right move. Now, he may keep his job, but it may be the wrong decision. Like, I think Porter keeping his job
Yeah,
is
the
the
other way.
wrong decision.
I think it might be the right decision.
I don't
What
know.
if this is like a moderately wealthy guy in a marriage that he isn't happy with, but he goes by the cheaper to keeper aspect? And he's like, if I get a divorce, I'm losing half, and
Well, yeah, that's back to the Porter
kills all my
idea.
money.
Yeah.
But if I just stay in this unhappy marriage, then it's cheaper.
I think
Brent's
if you've got,
what, 5 more years on his contract? What do we sound like a 6th
I think
year?
so. I
after
think
that
that's
but let's say,
2 or whatever.
but look, let's just say that the team is disappointed in their, we'll call it 7 wins, but they're
Okay.
disappointed in their 7 wins, of course, but they were very tight games, very close, could have gone either way.
6
Mateer,
and 7 in this context is a big difference. though.
Mateer's
So-
fired up about coming back.
Okay.
He's not ready to
Okay.
go. Stone and all of them are locked
Are
in.
you saying should keep his job or will keep his job? Because you said will.
He said
I,
bold prediction.
I said
He's
will.
keeping his job.
Will.
But you're also saying should.
and I say should.
He said
7
both.
wins he should. 6 wins he should.
He should.
I don't think so.
I don't think 6 wins you should.
So I know I keep yelling 10 and 2.
I think he should be.
That will be my
I don't think
prediction.
he deserves it. I don't think he deserves it. I think it's the best move
I think
for the program.
realistically 9 and 3 is where you need to be. And I know that's crazy relative, but if this team doesn't win more games than the team we had last year with the same schedule, again, I know home and away is
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
and I know teams
Okay, I'll give
change,
I'll give
but if this team doesn't outperform last year's team with everything that's happened, something is not right. Like,
Agreed.
point blank,
I think
something's
he has
not
to win
correct.
8 to keep his job.
I think 8 is the bottom line. And I know we said at the end of the season last year, and I'm not even happy with 8. I'm not.
So 8 for me, if I were making the decision, the only
Eight's
way I could
disappointing, but
justify
expected.
less than 8 is if it's like injuries and a lot of stuff outside of their control. And I got to see a lot of wow. It's really going in the right direction. We just got unlucky. Left,
Which
and-
was a lot last year.
I mean, what if
Right.
you hit, 4 posts on game-winning field goals?
Right. Right.
Then maybe go focus on a field goal kicker. You're fired.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. If it's something like that, you don't fire a coach because of something so random
I
like
do
that.
though. Like you're putting yourself in that position in
That's true.
4 games to be losing the
Well, it
game on a
depends.
losing
What
field goal.
what if the teams we lose to though are ranked 1 through 6
For sure.
in the final record, right? So it depends on that. Like they've got to be. I've got to have a lot of context.
Those are the teams that we set our standard against.
Yeah,
Those are the teams that we
Yeah.
measure up against the same.
yeah. I don't see any way that they're good enough that I'm gonna feel like it's a good decision to keep him at just 6 wins.
And if I'm in a game
And I don't know
1 through
about 7.
6, if I'm in a game 4 games against a team that's ranked 1 through 6, and I'm losing by 1 possession in every one of those games, I'm saying, Brent, you got to win the games. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like it sucks, but
I think
context is everything.
I think it would put us back to years.
So do you think?
I don't
Years.
So that's a
disagree.
different.
I don't disagree
That's
with
why I
the-
say
that's
keep-
a-
I don't
that's why I say
disagree
keep it.
with that. I don't disagree with how it would affect the program holistically and where we would hemorrhage, because we would, but when does it change? If you don't do it this year, sure, you re-up and you get another year under these guys' belts, you get David Stone, you get
But I think you look at the roster that, assuming they've told the coaches, I want to come back, etc. If that's the roster, I would take my chances the next year.
Oh,
with
it's
those
really scary.
players,
Really scary.
with those players and our coaching
Oh, it's
staff
huge.
to get us over that
Well,
hump.
and part of it's money.
Versus Urban Meyer and all new players.
Sure, whatever. Yeah, it's gonna have to be huge money to support a move, and it's gonna have to be a sensational splash hire. you can't start from scratch with something else.
You
That's,
gotta have something lined up.
you gotta have
before.
something lined up. Do you guys think he keeps his job with 6 wins?
No,
No,
I don't think he would either.
Okay, I'll change mine to 6. Okay, 6 is bad.
7.
7 is iffy.
a one game improvement.
I'm with you. I think 7 games.
7
I
and
think
7 and who it is
and how it
the
is.
game's played.
Yeah,
Not 5
yeah.
30-point losses.
7
Right.
and 5 does feel a lot different than 6 and 6. I'll
Like-
give you that.
Like 7 and 5. I think
especially with this schedule.
5 one-score games.
I don't think he necessarily should keep his job, but I think that he probably does keep his job at 7 and 5. I would agree with that.
But I mean, you go back and you look at the games we lost this year that we always talk about shouldn't have lost. Tennessee shouldn't have lost through what we did. Missouri, you choke off. If I have more games like that, that stuff is centered around coaching.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
not centered around.
So what you're
how
saying
the
is
game
none of
played
those.
out.
You can't be saying
It's all
any of those.
coaching.
It's got to be
Nobody made Jackson Arnold fumbled at the 4.
still. It can't look like
Nobody
it
made
looked
him
like
throw it
last year.
sideways laterally.
I don't know how.
But nobody. The game plan. that
Nobody
was-
made him fumble the ball
the
with
game.
Missouri with
The
a minute
game
to go
plan.
in the
That,
game.
the game plan that was called that dictated those plays. Truly, the personnel that was in there calling plays.
Who do we play before Texas?
Kent State.
No, I mean like who have called
Auburn.
it Auburn, right? So assume we lose to Michigan, Auburn, Texas.
He might get fired. He might get fired
No,
after the Texas.
No,
No,
Bama and LSU.
can't. Are those? I'm thinking of a scenario where you end the season strong
Oh, well, I mean, you end
and
with
you've
Bama and
lost
LSU.
5.
So you'd be losing to Michigan, Auburn, Texas, South Carolina.
Tennessee.
Is Tennessee?
Tennessee's late.
Is-
Tennessee's
yeah, it's late.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. So you lose to those 5 and you win the rest of your games. He
You
keeps
beat
his
Bama,
job.
LSU, Tennessee,
He keeps his job.
and Missouri.
He keeps his job. It may come down to also the bowl game. It also may come down to like where it breaks and what kind of bowl game you get and what kind of matchup.
And again, having a front office, if 7 and 5 or 8 and 4 is still not good enough for player retention, well, that's a whole different ballgame.
What if we go 7 and 5?
If they don't want to come back to the staff, if your players can all leave and they don't want to come back to the staff or don't believe in this staff,
That's
then you have to
different.
make it.
That's
What if we go
Even if
7
you're
and
8
5 and Nagy gets an offer from Ohio State, who won an Natty this year and then goes 10 and 2 next year and loses in the semifinal, and Ohio State's like, "Here's a bag, come do your thing with us," and then you lose Nagy and maybe 2 more staff members of this staff that we think is going to be the front office. Then you got Brent essentially starting over with that group.
Well, it's a
You're
whole
still
new thing.
keeping
You'd have a
Brent.
new general manager that's supposedly a whole lot in charge of hiring the next coach.
I don't think general manager hires coach at all. I think it's 100%.
So what are you saying in that scenario? You think he gets?
I
Then you
think,
clean house.
yeah, then you have to clean house, for sure.
I don't think now you leave after.
I mean, I'm not predicting that. at
But
all.
none of that matters because we're gonna be a disappointing 10 and 2. We're gonna make the SEC championship game and win it, and then we're gonna run the table in the playoff. And he keeps his job.
It's easy.
It's that
It's that
easy.
easy.
These aren't crimson, but you need to.
It is interesting that we're in this position and frustrating. And I don't know if there aren't many teams that are in this position where they're having to make this type of call about, does my coach keep his job 7 and 5? It's such a weird, perfect storm of where OU football is and the daunting schedule that we're facing. It'd be so much easier if we were facing a schedule that was very easy or even just average. And you said the over under is 8.5 and it's very attainable, but this could happen or that could happen. And we could easily go from 10 and 2 to 7 and 5. We're just not in that position right now. It's kind of frustrating. If I were Brent, I'd be pretty damn
Really
frustrated
frustrating.
about the
It's really
situation.
frustrating.
It really sucks.
I mean,
I think you're underestimating the fact that if you say 6, but now you're saying 7. I think you're underestimating OU's pull on the head coaching prospects because you're a top 10 university. You're a top 5 of all time, but you're still a top 10 program in the country.
Are you? If you're floundering
And that
now,
yeah,
I
you
mean,
are.
Well,
I think you still are.
From a job perspective, you are.
you might be
job
looking at it, you might be looking at it to say we are, and we may not be
Yeah,
if we
if
wait
we
a
don't-
year
if we
to make
don't-
the
yeah,
move.
if we don't make
It's
the
now
right-
or never.
Every
And
year
also-
you don't make a move and you continue with 7 wins,
Well, and also regardless of what
you're just kicking the can down the road.
exactly, and what we don't talk about, and what's a very real fact with OU specifically, you go 7-5. I don't care if you and I and everyone else says he should keep his job. If donors don't want to pay money,
Yep.
and you start having donors saying, "I'm not giving you a damn dime
Well,
until something
that's the
happens,"
driving factor.
like that,
Then
And
you're
I-
like
good
Texas
riddance.
was,
And I will,
strong
Yep.
for
and
sure.
what's the other idiot's name?
Herman.
yeah,
Tom
Herman,
Herman,
yeah.
I mean, they're winning 8 games. They're like, get his ass out of there.
Well, that's the key, and not just that. They have to be saying we'll pony up for the new guy. We'll
Yeah,
buy the
We'll buy him out.
we'll buy him out, and we'll buy the new guy, and here's the
Tell
route
us what
to
you
where
want.
we want to be. Yeah, tell us what it is, and that'll be key. So it's not a matter of what we have to say; it's a matter of what the big guys have to say.
Next thing you know, you
in
got a
terms
Mike
of
Tomlin
money.
as your head coach. And everybody's happy.
I mean,
Every-
I feel like if you have, a material with a good year, but it's gonna stay. And the youth on the entire
Yeah.
defensive side of the ball, the youth on the offensive line that's gonna be coming up through. All the receivers we brought in having a whole nother season.
Well,
because they're all young too.
what you're
Donors don't
saying-
see that logic though.
What you're saying though is that all of us see it as we're close,
Yeah.
and if we see it as we're close, then I think
I
maybe
don't
we
think it's
should.
just we're close. I do think it's there, but I think it can completely dissipate. I think worse than we
Yeah.
can even imagine. I don't care what kind of clout you think we have as hiring for coaches. I think it can just poof.
Well, I think that's where we are, right? We're at this point where this kind of needs to work, or we need to figure out the next thing that's going to work, or we're going to be in a really
Oh, we're at a
difficult.
huge
world.
impasse in our program.
But I
this
think the
season.
following
In this
season-
9 months are.
Next thing you know, you got Schnellenberger coach.
But the following season with the roster and should be an easier schedule.
Right?
I think you can save the program on that.
Now you got to get buy-in from the people who are wanting to stay, who we want to stay though as well. And I don't disagree with you at all. I'm just,
I certainly hope we're not in that position,
but
man.
if you're having to sell kids on staying after a
I mean, you
6
took
or
the guy after like
7-5
an 8.
season, huh?
I mean, you think 9-3 is there?
Well, yeah,
No,
but
I think
you're not
8-4
having
is
to
the
sell
bottom
people
limit.
on
9-3, I'm
'Cause
still
You got
disappointed.
continuity though. Yeah, at 8-4, you like you're
8-4, it's like, man, that's the cutthroat.
you've
Like,
got the record of what you're trying to.
I mean, you're
believe.
disappointed at 9-3?
well,
Like just as a fan, or you're disappointed in the staff and the players and everybody? Like, how could they?
I think
get more
disappointed.
time in?
I want like so. I speak of a standard, right? I do want to be within the upper echelon of college football, and I know that I'm trying to skip steps in some instances. 9-3, I say I'm disappointed because I think very good teams don't finish 9-3. I think they finish 10-2, 11-1, 12-0 in
I
some
think
instances.
that's old. That's
8-4, I'm upset.
I say old thinking. It's very short, just a year or two ago way of thinking,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's the forward thinking.
And I think there's probably some internal alignment that I need to have, but like 8-4 would be a bottom line for me.
But
Like
you literally have the hardest schedule in the country.
I know, I get it,
Like
but at some point you can't.
I don't
lean
even
on
know.
that.
But
Like at some point
not-
you have to win games.
not only is it the hardest schedule in the country, I bet if you go back and look over the last 40 years, it ranks somewhere in the top 10 hardest schedules in the country.
Gotta win games.
You gotta win games, yeah.
We can only
We
play
have
who we
9 top 25 teams.
Gotta win the games.
I've never heard someone
If
play
it
9.
plays,
games.
if it plays out that way, there's more credibility on what you're saying for sure. And 8-4 feels different than.
I'm not gonna sit and
what
use that
we
as an
think.
excuse though. If it,
Yeah.
if
I mean,
it
we
fits.
were stoked when we had teams that won 11-1 and we beat 2
Right,
top 25,
right.
right? So you want to go,
But we
you
beat
wanna
them
go
well
9
and we beat everyone
you
else.
want to go 9-3.
Clearly.
You want to go 9-3 and beat 7 of them.
Well,
I do.
and you have to at 7 wins or whatever, you got to have some. Wow, we just completely dominated these teams, and the other teams better live up to billing
It's on a mark.
absolutely, completely.
I'm saying
And
there's
we
just
barely
not
lose.
much.
There were timeframes in the
There's not much
2000s
room.
when OU, Texas, OSU,
Kansas State.
Texas Tech, and I mean,
I bet we played
A&M
5 at most.
were in there, and we were winning 4 or 5 of those 5 games, and then we were still beating a Nebraska, a Missouri, or a K State that were in the top 25.
Or Colorado.
I bet there's or Colorado. I bet there's years in like 01, 02, 03 era that we were literally beating 7 of the top 25
I bet it was more.
on a consistent basis. I don't know.
I tend to
Steve will
think,
do it. Steve will look it up.
I tend to think that you're right, that
We've had
So-
gauntlets of schedules.
We have.
I kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth here. I'm gonna say it is a very, very, very tough schedule, and yet we've also had very, very tough schedules, and we're kind of looking at this on paper and assuming it's gonna be harder than it necessarily is. And I'm reluctant to, at least from the standpoint of before the season's even played, give them too much grace in terms of it's a really tough schedule. Let's set our
You've
expectations
had time
low.
to prepare for the schedule, which is what we're doing.
Now, I may be,
In my
I may sing in a different tune at the end of the season, and these teams have been phenomenal, and we barely lost. And I'm saying, I see hope.
Yeah,
I
tip your
see.
hat.
I could be in your camp and say he should keep his job at 7-5. But at this point, it's really hard for me to say that. I don't know.
After the last 2 out of the 3 seasons that we've had, 2 of those seasons being in the Big 12, one of them being a 6-win season in the Big 12, and where we're just at, I mean, it's like we said, there is no more runway to have bad seasons. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Even if he keeps his job, you will hemorrhage players. I do not think you will get buy-in from the guys you need to get buy-in from with another 6-6 or possibly 7-5 season. Those guys will say, F it. David Stone can go to Georgia. All these other guys can go to other teams that have beat us, et cetera, et cetera.
We're starting over.
Yeah, I mean, you possibly, no matter what, could be rebuilding.
We lost our best player, Bauer Sharp, to LSU.
No, but I said,
Amen, brother.
but I said that though. If you're looking at the end of the season and you're the
And
team
Nolan wants to stick
that
around.
doesn't have faith in the coaching staff, well, that's a whole.
That's different,
Right.
whole different story.
Now, and I hope you're right. I hope there's a level of confidence that's being instilled from the coaching staff plus this front office that's come in to say, this is the buy-in that we need to make sure we get there, whether it's now or whether it's a development and we get there next year.
And to me, this is almost completely new to the portal area. This
It
did
is.
not worry me
Right.
5 years ago
Well,
on getting rid of Brent Venables and off the ball.
but you also have the opportunity in the transfer portal era to bring in a new coach, and a whole new group of players comes in with them. And the other thing that can salvage all of that is, even if you have a bad season and you're showing that you can get guys to the NFL, if we can produce there, you're saying, hey, look, here's the deal. We're struggling. We're getting better than, I know the fans want us to be a lot better than we're being, and we want to be better, but you're getting what you want out of it. You're getting your NIL while you're here. You're getting paid otherwise while you're here, and we're getting you to the NFL. If that's the case, you got the retention, and you can build for the future and parlay that into what we hope is further success. But I don't know. That's tough. That's tough to say that you're only going to be 7-5.
I can't wait for early season predictions.
I think we're going to be better than 7-5.
I do too.
I
I do too.
10-2.
But you're just saying what the bare minimum is. I agree.
I appreciate it.
I think you've got a very good point.
Great bowl prediction.
We're gonna leave it there. We'll pick it back up soon. We'll talk about some more things as everything starts to materialize. We get
Post
to
the
fall
fall camp.
camp, and it's pretty exciting. But until then, Boomer.
Sooner.
Sure.